Yes, sir. We is on that. Another Say Less Moments TV. Make sure you like, hype, subscribe. We back in the saddle like never left. Pooh Shiesty and the breakdown of the story and his pops. Let's get it.
The world knows Memphis for its music, Stack Records, Soulville, USA, the birthplace of Southern Soul, Otis Redding, Isaac Hayes, the staple singers, all of it born right here on Macklemore Avenue. Elvis Presley lived and died here. Graceland still draws pilgrims from every corner of the planet. There's the barbecue, the blues on Bill Street, Owen College, one of the oldest historically black institutions in the South, sitting right in the heart of the city. Memphis is culture, Memphis is legacy, Memphis is on the map. But there is a Memphis that is a make the tourism brochure, a Memphis that runs underneath all the landmarks and the legends, deeper, darker, and a lot more honest about what the city has always been. South Memphis, train tracks cutting through neighborhoods where the American dream never fully arrived. The music was born out of pain because the pain never stopped. But the streets and the studio have always been the same room. This is a story from that Memphis.
Big brr, 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 brr. Big brr.
November the 8th, 1999, Lontrell Danielle Williams Jr. entered this world right there in the middle of all of it. And the man who shaped him most wasn't no teacher, wasn't no coach. It was his father, Lontrell Williams Sr., known throughout South Memphis as My Boss. My Boss had already built something before his son could walk. He had close ties to Ronnie Woods, one of the major street figures in South Memphis.
Seth Greg, we uncovered this large stack of indictments naming 35 people in all. Now, these are some of the men and women charged in this massive investigation led by Memphis Police Multi-Agency Gang Unit. Sources tell us since 2018, they've been building this case and used wiretapping. They say this case involved.
They got it like Big U. They Big U.
These people are tied to the Memphis mob, one of the oldest gangs in the Bluff City. But three of the people.
Now, this is the breakdown to let you know Pooh Shiesty dad was messing with the feds since way back. A lot of people never believe me. I try to tell y'all, Pooh Shiesty Pops was certified FBI ratting. Let's continue.
Indicted are brothers. You can see them there, Bernard, Steve, and Ronnie Woods. We're told they're high up in this gang, and Ronnie and Bernard are also accused of money laundering. Ronnie was arrested in DeSoto County and brought to Memphis today. Now, all three are being held on a $2 million bond. Now, also in the indictments is Michael McKinney. He's facing several drug charges and money laundering. He was just arrested after police say he killed his wife in front of his two at Crescent Bluff Apartments downtown. His bond is now $1 million. Now we're continuing to dig into this case, and we're trying to find out more information about the investigation. As soon as we find anything out, we're going to let you know. Live in the studio, Jessica Gertler, WREG.
Now, this is going to show you the breakdown, like I said, to how Pooh Shiesty dad got caught up on a RICO way back when he was my boss and started telling on other people. And that's how he was rubbing shoulders, and he started rubbing shoulders with the police and telling.
90s, 2000s, one of the most prominent spots in the whole city at the time. Drug dealers, athletes, street royalty, they all moved through that room. He founded Mob Ties Records, his own independent label. His son was in the studio watching all of it from the jump. But here is what the streets of Memphis don't say loud enough, and what the federal record makes crystal clear. Montrell Williams Sr. was not just a street figure who had got caught and did his time. In case number 07-20305-STA, filed in the United States District Court or the Western District of Tennessee on April the 15th of 2009, Mob Boss pleaded guilty to one-count federal drug conspiracy under 21 U.S.C. Section 846 and counts 2 through 5 distribution of controlled substances under 21 U.S.C. Section 841A1. Attorney Howard L. Wackerman represented him, and he didn't just plead guilty. He signed a cooperation agreement with the United States government. Paragraph 4 of that plea deal carries that file.
Do you hear that right there? He, Pooh Shiesty dad, came to a plea deal. Lontrell Williams, case number 07-20305-STA, April 15th, 2009, 10:51 a.m. when this nigga signed a plea agreement to start ratting for the FBI. Let's continue.
A1 Substantial Assistance Clause. He agreed to provide the government with ongoing and anticipated future assistance, including complete and truthful information assisting in the investigation or prosecution of other individuals, and complete and truthful testimony at subsequent proceedings when needed. In exchange, the government reserves the right to recommend a downward departure from his sentence. The government's assessments.
Pooh Shiesty dad is a rat. Here it is. Here to prove. Everybody say they want proof. This is the proof and case number that Pooh Shiesty dad started messing with the police and he's a certified snitch.
The value and completeness of his assistance are solely within their discretion and binding on the defendant. The man the streets called Mob Boss, who ran Club Martini, who built Mob Ties Records, who is held up as the foundation of everything Pooh Shiesty became, signed a deal to cooperate with the federal government and provide information against other people to reduce his own sentence. That is not a rumor. That's case number 07-20305-STA. The Western District of Tennessee. It is all public record. For those wondering how Lontrell Jr. got his nickname, the name came from his late brother Torrance Henderson, TP. TP called him Mr. Pooh since he was little. When Torrance died, the wound never fully closed. Lontrell put that grief on his back and kept going. Later, somebody added Shiesty, Memphis slang for cold, calculated moves without apology. Pooh Shiesty was then born. Around 16, the family packed up and relocated to Pflugerville, Texas, just outside of Austin, for about 2 years. Pulled him out of Memphis and dropped him somewhere with none of the energy he was built from. What it gave him was perspective. Nothing moved like South Memphis. Nothing ever would. When they came back, he buckled down. Summer school, online classes. He got his diploma and he picked up the mic and didn't put it down. Before Pooh Shiesty was a rapper, they was moving reckless in the streets. The music was just something they added on top of it. Choppa Gang Entertainment, CGE 375, is rooted in Cane Creek. Set runs Peru and Grit Street Crip politics, a Memphis version of that Cali dynamic. Out here, it ain't about the national affiliation as much as it is about the clique, the block, the track you from. Cane Creek is Choppa Gang territory. That was the foundation before a single song or video ever got uploaded to YouTube. Two names in that circle ran with Shiesty from day one. TV on the Bride, aka Choppa Gang Hank, Choppa Wop, pictures on the tape. These were the same school lunchrooms, the same corners, the same hood, the same track. Choppa Gang Hank history with law enforcement was already documented before Shiesty season ever dropped. August 2020, while Shiesty was out in South Florida catching federal attention, Hank was riding South Memphis in a Dodge Challenger, hunting for his ops who were said to have been driving a red Infiniti. It's no secret that Hank's partner had been killed. According to the streets, Hank was out for retaliation. Hank spotted a red Infiniti at the intersection of Silver Ridge Avenue and Kansas Street and opened fire from the passenger seat. 3 bullets caught the driver in the back. The victim, Kerry Tolbert, 30 years old, was rushed to Regional 1 Health. Needless to say, he never walked again.
The driver of this white Challenger lost control and crashed at Kansas and Silveridge Wednesday night while chasing and shooting at the driver of a red Infiniti. Investigators say the driver of that Infiniti, 30-year-old Kerry Tolbert, was shot 3 times in the back and also crashed nearby. Otis Carr was asleep and didn't see this car crash at the end of his street, but knows the victim. Police say Kevion Mabry opened fire on the red Infiniti in retaliation for the shooting death of a fellow gang member. Turns out it was the wrong car. Investigators say Tolbert was not involved in gang activity and may be permanently paralyzed. Neighbors say Tolbert hit this utility pole before crashing his red Infiniti up the street, and a Skycop cam on Silveridge may have captured it all. Police say Mabry was also captured on camera at Southland Mall last summer, assaulting and carjacking a man cleaning the parking lot. The 19-year-old has been charged with attempted murder in that case and was out of jail on $150,000 bond at the time of this shooting. In South Memphis, Melissa Moon, WREG. It's Channel 3.
According to investigators, Tolbert had zero connection to the gang war. Wrong car, wrong man. An innocent civilian paralyzed for a debt he never owed. Hank caught attempted first-degree murder, Shelby County. Same set, same block, same summer Shiesty season was being built in the studio. Choppa was another Cane Creek resident, a founding member of the CGE Collective, who was moving with Shiesty before the cameras and a major label deal ever entered the picture.
Shelby County Sheriff's Office taking responsibility to the accidental recent release of a convicted killer. CSO says that the release of Anthony Green, there on your screen, happened because of an administrative error. Green posted a $2,500 bond for a petty theft shortly after a murder conviction. Now the sheriff's office said,
if I ever was fighting a body and they gave me $2,500 bail, you'll never see my black ass again. Not never.
as a deputy failed to adhere to established protocols designed to ensure that all bonds were properly revoked when required.
His presence on Shiesty season was in the feature call. It was a statement about who built this thing and where it came from. Then there's Rodney Wright Jr., Big 30, Whitehaven born, but his cousins lived in Cane Creek, and that's what put him in Shiesty's world. They linked up an alternative school, and they were in the 4th or 5th grade. Both had been expelled from their regular schools. Before rap was ever a thought, they were two young boys figuring out the same city from different blocks of it. Shiesty's first real viral moment came from Breaking News, a Choppa Gang group record he slid onto at the very end, 4 bars.
Breaking news, bitch, I'm Shiesty Pooh taking shit, what I do.
Some random person screen recorded his verse off Facebook and posted it separately. It spread across Memphis like a lit match. His opening line said everything. From there, the Choppa Gang YouTube channel became the pipeline. Hell Night with Big 30, Shiesty Summer, Choppa Talk, all of it built locally before the industry ever noticed.
Big brother. In the backyard, letting off.
Now here is where the streets of Memphis get complicated, because Choppa Gang was not operating in a vacuum. While they were building their name in Cane Creek, another set on the other side of the city had a problem with them that went well back before any record deal. EBG, E-Bizzle Gang, coded 527 in the local Memphis gang database, is a North Memphis set, different geography from Cane Creek, different side of the tracks, but the same city. And in Memphis, that means the same war. The conflict that defined this beef started with a robbery. According to EBG Jizzle, Shiesty and Choppa Gang ran up on EBG spots and took weapons. Jizzle's version was that it wasn't significant, but Shiesty turned it into something public, a flexing point, a declaration broadcast across Memphis that Choppa Gang had moved on EBG and was daring them to respond. EBG Jizzle went on Instagram Live and made his position plain. Said Back in Blood, who Shiesty breakout single, the direct diss to his brother. Said Shiesty was running his mouth on record about a situation that wasn't as serious as he was making it sound. He wasn't sliding in the comments. He was calling it out publicly, on record, with his name on it.
The shit started from really from a burglary. You know, nigga broke in the house and stole some shit. Too far away. And really try to put it like they extorted something, but that really did some junk ass shit. You know how it go. These niggas doing what you supposed to be when you were 14, 15, breaking the house, busting windows out and shit.
So go ahead and rap about it and shit.
I guess that was the Back in Blood song. You see it. That was really when he put it like he took something, that was me.
Oh, so that Back in Blood song, I feel like that was about y'all brother and shit.
We know that. No, I wasn't about our brothers, about them breaking in the house. We just trying to put it like he took something. You hear this song? You got to listen to it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That do make sense though, but damn.
Then he went even further. On New Year's Day 2021, EBG Jizzle and Mo Slime dropped the full Back in Blood remix, their version of events. In the video, they showed up wearing CGK hoodies, Choppa Gang Killer. That wasn't subliminal. That was a direct declaration of war put on the camera for the whole world to see. That remix, it got pulled for copyright infringement. So Jizzle kept going. He dropped another record called Rumor and brought Quando Rondo onto a FaceTime in the video. That detail was not accidental. Rondo's crew had killed King Von, the Dirk's people. Same night, Back in Blood dropped. King Quando on the screen in the Pooh Shiesty diss track was a direct knife in the chest of anyone in that circle. Word on the street was Jizzle wanted smoke with all of them. In early February of 2021, word spread that EBG Jizzle had been shot and was reported paralyzed. Pooh hit Instagram stories immediately. Just went straight to the phone, talked to Jizzle directly, named him, made it plain he had zero sympathy for anybody who came at him, then caught a bullet for it. Jizzle pushed back, posted a video from the hospital moving his legs, 3 shots to the arm, not to the back. He was not paralyzed.
Hotels.com introduces Save Your Way.
So you mean to tell me the song Back in Blood was about Pooh Shiesty breaking in somebody's house, stealing, and he made it seem like he caught a body? That's crazy work, gang.
Ooh, I can't walk. I can't walk. I bet a nigga ain't can't do this. Nigga ain't can't do this.
And instead of going quiet, he came back with another diss track called Paralyzed. On it, he went after the wound that never healed in Cane Creek, accused Shiesty Deceased's brother of being a snitch. He also dropped the bar that cut through everything else on the record. You had a clear shot in my face, and you still went for my arm. He was telling the world that whoever came for him didn't finish what they started. At beef, it never got officially resolved. No handshake, no statement, no public into it. Choppa Gang and EBG left it exactly where the streets leave most things, unsettled, with both sides still standing on what they said. What it shows the streets watching was Pooh Shiesty did not separate who he was on record from who he was in the streets. Same man, same instinct every single time. Around April 10th, 2020, Pooh Shiesty was at a house cooling when his phone lit up. Gucci Mane, Roderick Davis, slid into his DMs directly. Gucci had been listening to Mane's line, the Tate Keith produced record that had all of Memphis buzzing. The message from Gucci was short. I'm listening to your stuff, bruh. You hard. Are you signed? Pooh told him he was independent, sent his number. They locked in from there.
Speaking of WAP, I saw that he reached out to you. He hit you in your DM. What was your first reaction when you saw Gucci Man like hit you up?
I went crazy. I went crazy. I can't believe it.
For real. So what happened after that? After he DM'd you, when did y'all link up?
Like a week after that. Like I was saying, like a week after that. And then I had to hold it in like another week.
Yeah.
So I could like go up public. Yeah.
What made you sign with Guwap?
Man, he I ain't gonna lie, like he just I don't see myself really signing with nobody. Like I ain't really want to sign, but it made perfect sense. And then he actually wanted to see me win. So
But you have to understand what that moment meant in context. In Memphis, if you were a rapper coming up, the two paths were Yo Gotti, CMG, or Young Dolph's Paper Route Empire. Those were the lanes the city laid out, and Pooh had resisted both. He said himself he never wanted to sign with anyone. He even questioned why Choppa Gang couldn't be its own lane the same way CMG and PRE were. When Gucci's message came through, it was a third option, one that sat completely outside the Memphis power structure, and it showed up at the right time, because the CMG and PRE got bloodier every year. That same tension eventually got Dolph gunned down at Makita's Cookies in November of 2021. Gucci had pulled Pooh Shiesty out of that fire before it even started.
A rapper whose star was on the rise and the music industry has been killed.
All right, young Dolph was shot in broad daylight in Memphis today. Let's bring in Arthur Chin now with the latest on what we've learned. Arthur.
Steve, Laurie, right now a manhunt is underway for the shooter of rapper Young Dolph, who returned to his hometown of Memphis to visit an aunt who has cancer and to give out Thanksgiving turkeys for the holidays. 36-year-old rapper Young Dolph had arrived. Success in his Memphis, Tennessee hometown had translated into Billboard chart success and major collaborations with the likes of Key Glock, Megan Thee Stallion, T.I., Gucci Mane, and others. All of it brought to an abrupt end as he was gunned down in a cookie store. Reaction immediate and heartfelt for a performer who always gave back to his community.
Shiesty signed to 1017 Records.
Hey, y'all remember that dude, Onan TV, who used to be talking about Pooh Shiesty every single day? He used to be dogging Makita's cookies. I used to be like, this nigga talking about Dolph every day. This was before I was even a YouTuber. I used to slide on every time, and Onan used to be always talking. And I listened to him a couple times because I like Dolph, you know what I mean? But this nigga used to be on them people every day. Well, this is the time Pooh Shiesty got signed, right? But at the same time, Onan, he in like federal prison right now. They did a segment probably like 2-3 months ago, said he get great. I'm talking about great because of the stuff he was saying about the people that was going against Dolph and stuff like that. They said whatever federal prison he is, he's a real woman right now. They be doing him like for real, for real. They said in DC, they love niggas like that. Like, man, they said Onan is in there being a 304 for sure.
In April of 2020 with Atlantic Records as the distribution partner. The deal was done. Now he had to live with it. July 7, 2020, Memphis, Tennessee. Pooh Shiesty was inside a vehicle when another passenger buzzed shots from a firearm at a gas station. He was present. He was in the car. The feds cataloged it and folded it into what would eventually become a federal conspiracy count. No separate charge at the time, but it stayed in the government's file. October 9, 2020, Bay Harbor Islands, Florida. Pooh Shiesty and two dudes, Bobby Brown of Memphis and Jaden DeRosa of Pembroke Pines, pulled up to the Landon Hotel in a rented bright green McLaren. A black Mercedes Maybach followed. They were meeting two men to pick up marijuana, a pair of high-end sneakers, and drink. According to the federal government, members of Shiesty group pulled semi-automatic weapons and assaulted both sellers during the transaction. One man was shot in the ass. Shiesty drove off with all of the shit without paying. As the McLaren pulled away, a Louis Vuitton bag stuffed with over $40,000 in cash fell out of the driver's door onto the pavement. Investigators later tied that bag directly to Pooh Shiesty through a $100 bill. The full serial number matched the bill he had flashed on his own Instagram account days before. He surrendered to Bay Harbor Island Police on October the 13th of 2020. Initial state charges: armed robbery with a firearm, aggravated battery with a deadly weapon causing great bodily harm, aggravated assault with a firearm, and death. October 1st, 2020, Brookside, Alabama. Big 30, Rodney Wright Jr. was arrested on side Leeton Foster on I-22.
Mm-hmm. When I seen that bag with all that money that he dropped, I was like, man, this is crazy work, man. How you gonna end up robbing something, then leave all the money, then shoot dude in the booty, and think he ain't finna tell? They try to pay him off though, but old boy still told and it was on camera. But Pooh Shiesty been busting on people the whole career, like, and he always robbing something. Like, even if he got the bread, he still be robbing stuff.
Back of a squad car Thursday morning to a mugshot. Brookside, Alabama police provided these pictures of rapper Rodney Big 30 White. Police tell us White was on his way to Memphis from Atlanta when narcotics interdiction officers stopped him and another man. Brookside is about 3.5 hours outside of Memphis. White was the passenger in the rented Ford Expedition they stopped. While officers have not said why they pulled the SUV over, they are telling us what they say they found inside. $17,000 in cash, a loaded Glock 40 handgun, promethazine and codeine, and marijuana they say was packaged to sell. Police say White is a gang member in Memphis. He has pending state and federal charges in Tennessee and is waiting federal extradition.
March 30th, 2021, Memorial Day weekend, Miami. Pooh Shiesty was at the King of Diamonds strip club when he allegedly assaulted a security guard with a firearm. Shiesty surrendered to authorities June the 8th. Miami-Dade state prosecutors picked it up separately. He was held without bond, even after the victim of the shooting recanted.
A popular rapper arrested. He's accused of shooting a security guard at a South Florida gentleman's club and will remain behind bars. A judge denied bond for 21-year-old Lontrell Williams, known as Pooh Shiesty. Police say he was performing at King of Diamonds in Miami over Memorial Day weekend when cash was knocked out of his pocket. When the crowd tried to grab it, police say he showed off his gun, and while he was being escorted out of the club, he fired a shot, hitting the guard in the ankle. He's been charged with aggravated battery.
January 29, 2021, a federal grand jury in the Southern District of Florida formally indicted Latrell Williams Jr. on 4 counts, discharging a firearm, a violent crime, conspiracy, and robbery, all stemming from Bay Harbor Island. The most serious count alone carried a possible life sentence. He was ordered held without bond July the 8th. January 4, 2022, Pooh Shiesty pleaded guilty to a single federal count, conspiracy to possess firearms, and furtherance of crimes of violence and drug trafficking. As part of the plea, he formally admitted to all 3 incidents: the Memphis gas station shooting, July 2020, the Bay Harbor Islands robbery and assault, October 2020, and the King of Diamonds strip club assault, May 2021. Prosecutors dropped the remaining 3 counts, including the one that could have sent him away for the rest of his life. April 20th, 2022, U.S. District Judge Michael K. Moore sentenced Latrell Williams Jr. to 63 months, 5 years and 3 months. The government pushed for 8 years. Defense attorney Bradford Coyne pushed back, arguing ballistics didn't place Shiesty as the shooter in Bay Harbor and that the conspiracy charge was being over-enhanced. The judge ultimately ended up siding closer to the defense. 3 separate criminal incidents, 2 states, all firearms, 2 involving violent assault on real people. This is not allegation. This is what Latrell Williams Jr. signed his name to under oath in a federal courthouse. Before the Fed slammed the door, Pooh Shiesty built a buzz in a year and a half that most rappers don't touch in a decade. Shiesty season dropped February the 5th of 2021. Debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200, double platinum. Back in Blood alone, 8 times platinum. Beatbox 2 was Spot and Got 'em, hit number 12 on the Hot 100. Shiesty was named to the Double XL Freshman class for 2021. The scene had that boy in videos, not as a costume, but because that's how he was really moving on the street. So persuasive, it carried his name in the streets and fashion to this day. That ain't branding. That's authenticity that crossed over into a product on its own. Choppa Gang Hank and Choppa Wop appeared on the tape too. The track Big 13 Gang, which is itself a coded Pyru set reference built right into the title. From June 2021 to October 6, 2025, Shiesty was locked down in the feds. 3 years of a 5-year sentence before the BOP released him early. While inside, the 1017 roster around him got picked apart. Big Scar, his cousin, another 1017 artist, died in December of 2022. Fujiano caught his own federal case. Next generation of Southern rap that Gucci had assembled was falling apart one by one.
Yeah, Neil, so we're talking about Fujiano, the Atlanta-based rapper whose real name is Kwame Brown, is represented by Gucci Mane. Booking photo just in. U.S. Marshals now say they tracked down the 27-year-old in Memphis last week. They tell us they had been trying to find him for 3 months after he apparently melted off his court-ordered ankle monitor, and they tried to track him down there. At last, Brown is now being he's part of an ongoing wrongful death lawsuit stemming from a fatal shooting that happened at a nightclub in South Carolina. We are working to get some more information. Once we get that, we'll post it on our website at WKRN.
Gucci eventually dropped nearly his entire 1017 roster in a cost-cutting move, called it a profit and loss decision. Almost everybody was cut free. Gucci held on to Pooh Shiesty though. He held on to Fujiano, the two with the most commercial upside. That decision to hold on to Pooh Shiesty set everything in motion. Word coming out before Pooh Shiesty released that Yo Gotti and CMG had developed serious interest in signing him. The same Memphis label he bypassed years ago was circling back, but Shiesty was still locked in to 1017. Gucci was not releasing him, and that contractual wall became the pressure that eventually lit the match. October 5th, 2025, Shiesty walked out of federal prison based on home confinement, ankle monitor, restricted movement, prohibited from committing new crimes or possessing firearms. 2 months later, December 2025, he dropped FDO, First Day Out. The single hit number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100, his highest solo chart position ever. For about 60 days, the second chapter looked like it was writing itself clean.
Yeah, it looked like. And the whole time you had academics and everybody else yelling up and screaming on their platforms talking about what's taking so long for FDO. Everybody was talking about what's taking so long. Now we see why. $10 million taking too long.
So look, the house in Cordova that the FBI hit on the morning of April 1st was purchased it together back in April of 23. The man who operated with the feds in 09 bought a house with his son in 23. And on April the 1st of 2026, they were arrested together in the same federal operation on the same morning, or the son, same address, same case. January the 10th of 2026, Roger Davis, aka Gucci Mane, along with 2 associates, got jacked and hemmed up in Dallas, Texas. That meeting had been arranged by Shiesty. The purpose to discuss the terms of the recording contract with 1017 Records. But on a cool, it was always a setup. That was his way of getting Gucci close to him. According to the federal complaint, what happened inside that studio on Dallas Parkway involved 9 individuals and alleged coordinated armed violence. Antoine Williams Sr. allegedly booked the studio in advance and rented the vehicle used in the operation. Shiesty allegedly produced an AK-style pistol and forced the signature at gunpoint. Big 30 allegedly barricaded the door. Multiple co-conspirators allegedly produced firearms and robbed the remaining victims. 8 of the 9 defendants were arrested on April 1st of 2026. At a Dallas hearing on April 9th, defense attorney Bradford Cohen laid out what he described as significant holes in the government's case. No physical contract, no video of the alleged signing, no recovered firearms, no recovered jewelry.
Would you say your name first? Yeah, Bradford Cohen, Cohen, Sam Zengane, and John Helms. Any questions? Just look straight. Yeah, you got it. Thank you. So we had a bond hearing today and a PC hearing today. I think that the relevant things that were said today that I thought were fascinating were that it took 3 months to build a case. And I think the reason for that was because the statements that were given on the evening that this occurred were very questionable. I think the way that the statements were made, what allegedly was witnessed and what wasn't witnessed, I think gave great pause for the FBI. The FBI doesn't take 3 months to arrest someone if they believe everything that was said on the night that it occurred. They were involved the first night and then nothing happened for 3 months. In addition to that, that I thought was quite embarrassing was that an FBI agent says they don't have the resources to keep their eye on an individual. This is allegedly an individual that committed a crime that they then didn't watch to see if the guns were present, if the jewelry was present. And what didn't we hear today? What we didn't hear today is there is no contract, this mystery contract. They have no contract. They have no video of this alleged signing of a contract. They have no guns. They have no jewelry. They have none of that physical evidence.
The FBI admitted they had not personally interviewed Gucci or any other alleged victims, work entirely off of statements taken by police at the scene. Shiesty's attorney pointed to what he described as a single cooperating witness carrying the entire weight of the case. Judge found probable cause anyway.
Individuals, one of them being a very well-known individual that is allegedly cooperating with the government and making these allegations against my client and many more.
So you saying Gucci snitching?
Oh man, grand opening, grand closing, you guys. Pooh Shiesty's lawyer, Brad Cohen, is officially off the case.
Bradford Cohen. Bradford Cohen.
Today, it's defense attorney Bradford Cohen.
My expert panel. Bradford Cohen, criminal defense attorney. Brad Cohen is a defense attorney. Attorney Bradford Cohen.
Bradford Cohen is a defense attorney.
Bradford Cohen has made a career out of attaching his name to high-profile hip-hop cases, letting the association build his reputation for him. Lil Wayne, Kodak Black, Pooh Shiesty. Those names carry weight, and Bradford Cohen has been very deliberate about making sure his name travels with them. Reputation and record are two entirely different things, and when you separate what Bradford Cohen says from what Bradford Cohen has actually done in the federal courtroom, the story changes completely.
He been shaking shit.
Every high-profile case Bradford Cohen is known for ended in a conviction, not an acquittal, not a dismissal. Lil Wayne pled guilty.
Rapper Lil Wayne has pleaded guilty to a federal weapons charge. He faces up to 10 years in prison for possessing a weapon as a convicted felon. Officials say he was found with a gold-plated handgun and 6 rounds of ammo after his luggage was searched in Miami last year. The rapper told investigators the gun was a Father's Day gift. He'll be sentenced on January 28th, and for now, he's free on $250,000 bail.
Kodak Black pled guilty and went on to federal prison for 46 months.
Rapper Kodak Black pleaded guilty to federal weapons charges at a hearing in Miami today. Back in May, the 21-year-old, whose real name is Bill Capri, was charged with falsifying information on federal forms to buy 3 guns. Prosecutors say one of the weapons was found at the scene of a shooting in Pompano Beach. The rapper, who lives in Broward County, originally said he was innocent. He now faces up to 10 years in prison when he is sentenced in November.
Pooh Shiesty pled guilty on the prior case and went away for 63 months.
Rapper Pooh Shiesty is facing prison time after pleading guilty to a gun charge in Miami federal court. The case against Lontrell Williams Jr. stems from 3 shootings during the past 2 years, 2 of them happening right here in South Florida. In October of 2020, prosecutors said that Williams and another man shot 2 men arranging to buy marijuana and high-end sneakers from them. Then in May of last year, Williams was accused of shooting a security guard in the leg at a Miami strip club. Now, prosecutors say he could get up to 20 years in prison, but attorneys from both sides are reportedly seeking a shorter sentence to roughly 8 years in prison instead.
Michael Ashley was convicted at trial. If you don't know who that boy is, look him up. The clients who avoided the full weight of those convictions did so because Donald Trump issued a pardon or commutation.
If you get Donald Trump to pardon anything, best believe Lil Wayne made a big contribution, aka tax write-off donation, to get that pardon. Believe that.
President Trump has issued his final list of presidential pardons and commutations. In all, there are 73 pardons and 70 sentences commuted. Most notable name is former campaign advisor Steve Bannon, who pleaded not guilty to defrauding donors in a We Built the Wall fundraiser. Other notable names on the list include Lil Wayne, Kodak Black, and the former mayor of Detroit, Kwame Kilpatrick. President Trump's pardons do not include any members of his family or his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani.
A plea deal is a conviction, homie. A presidential pardon is not a legal victory. Bradford Cohen negotiated his clients into convictions, and then the sitting president at the time cleaned up the aftermath. That is the record behind that boy's brand. Now, here is what a plea deal actually costs the client in the long run, and why it matters for this specific situation. Bradford Cohen negotiated Pooh Shiesty's guilty plea on the prior case out of the Southern District of Florida, 63 months on the conspiracy to possess firearms charge. That conviction did not just send Shiesty to prison. It followed that boy out. It followed him on to a BOP home detention ankle monitor as a condition of his early release. It followed him into the current indictment as count 19, a felon in possession second charge, the government built directly on that prior conviction, and it became an aggravating circumstance at sentencing that the government would use to argue for a heavier sentence if tried to go to trial and is convicted on this current case. Plea deal Bradford Coin delivered on the prior case is not in the past. It's inside the current indictment, doing damage right now, homie. An actual elite federal defense attorney wins cases at trial. They suppress evidence. They attack the warrant. They dismantle identification. They create reasonable doubt in front of a jury and walk their client out of that building free. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that the Fed's conviction rate is so high because of plea deals. A plea deal is not a win. It's a conviction. I'm tired of saying it. What winning looks like in the federal courtroom is not taking a plea. Bradford Coin has never done that in a high-profile case. His clients have been convicted and then saved. That boy brand is built on closeness to famous defendants, not on courtroom victories. And now he was standing at the edge of the most evidence-heavy federal case of his hip-hop career, a case the government spent months building with technology that does not get cross-examined, victims that do not have credibility issues, in documentary evidence that was sitting in government databases before any defense attorney ever entered the picture. Let me repeat that for the ones in the back, homie. A case the government spent months building with technology that does not get cross-examined. Victims that do not have credibility issues and documentary evidence that was sitting in government database before any defense attorney ever entered the picture. When a federal complaint dropped, Bradford Coin was Pooh Shifty's attorney of record. That boy went public immediately. He expressed confidence. He suggested the government case had problems. He implied he had reviewed the evidence and found it lacking. He positioned himself as the man who was going to stand up in the federal courtroom in the Northern District of Texas and dismantle what the government had built.
So we had a bond hearing today and a PC hearing today. I think that the relevant things that were said today that I thought were fascinating were that it took 3 months to build a case. And I think the reason for that was because the statements that were given on the evening that this occurred were very questionable. I think the way that the statements were made, what was made, what allegedly was witnessed, and what wasn't witnessed, I think gave great pause to the FBI. The FBI doesn't take 3 months to arrest someone if they believe everything that was said on the night that it occurred. They were involved the first night, and then nothing happened for 3 months. In addition to that, that I thought was quite embarrassing was that an FBI agent says they don't have the resources to keep their eye on an individual. This is allegedly an individual that committed a crime that they then didn't watch to see if the guns were present, if the jewelry was present.
That right there was the Bradford Coin brand operating exactly as designed. Performance of confidence before anyone has actually tested the evidence in front of a jury. And then he withdrew, not fired. That boy withdrew. The internet is saying that he withdrew because Shiesty couldn't pay him. That is absolute 100% cap. The team that Shiesty reassembled are not cheap to hire, homie. Bradford Coin made the decision to remove himself from the case, filed the motion, got it approved by the federal court, formally walked away from a federal indictment involving one of the most recognizable names in hip-hop after telling the public he was ready to fight and beat the case.
All right, let's talk Pooh Shiesty. Quick update on Pooh Shiesty's case. I am just leaving Tennessee, actually, on a different federal case. I will be withdrawing off the case. No implications of me withdrawing off the case. I still think it's a great case. I think there's a lot of holes in it. I think the government has a lot of explaining to do on the case. But I will be substituting in will be Dan Codgel, who's a fantastic lawyer, and Kent Schaefer, who's also a fantastic lawyer, both from Dallas.
You burnt out.
Job on the case. I think it's one of those cases where once you start really screwing down on the information, the facts, I think that a lot's going to be coming out that will be beneficial to the defense. I think they're going to do a great job. And I look forward to seeing how the case winds up.
In a federal case, a withdrawal is not a casual move, homie. A judge has to approve it. Good cause has to be shown. The attorney has to ensure the timing does not prejudice the client at a critical moment. That boy, Bradford Cohen, went through every step of that process deliberately. The gap between what he said publicly and what he did privately is the most important thing in this entire story.
Shiesty, you better wiggle, cause they sure got a lot of video. And when Gucci tried to get out that door, dog, you can't stop the facts of what we saw. That nigga couldn't get out the door. He was trying to get up out that door with a quickness. He upped that chop. That's kidnap, brother. So I don't know how the feds do, but still, that's a life pending case in Cali.
Let us talk about what Bradford Cohen was actually looking at when he made that decision. The sentencing exposure on this indictment alone is unlike anything in his previous hip-hop cases. Count 2, 3, and 4 are federal kidnapping counts, carrying a maximum of life imprisonment. One per victim, all 9 defendants, each running consecutive to each other, a consecutive to everything else. 14 years of mandatory federal time on those 2 counts before a single day of the kidnapping sentence is even calculated. Government took the guilty plea. Bradford Cohen delivered on the prior case and built a standalone federal count out of it in the current indictment. Bradford Cohen was looking at a client whose mandatory minimum firearm charges alone ran to 14 consecutive years before the kidnapping life maximums entered the calculation. That is the sentencing floor, homie. Ain't no denying that. What Bradford Cohen would have had to do at trial, specifically on the firearm counts, is worth understanding because it explains the difficulty of the position that boy was in. The 924C brandishing counts against Shiesty carry mandatory minimums to run consecutive. That word consecutive is mentioned buku times in this indictment. It means the sentences don't overlap. They do not run at the same time. They stacking them shits up end to end. And here's the part that nobody is paying attention to, probably don't even understand. An attorney defending against stacked consecutive mandatory minimums at trial cannot negotiate those down after a conviction. Mandatory means mandatory, homie. The judge has no discretion. If the jury convicts, the judge is required by law to impose 14 years minimum before even touching the kidnapping counts. Bradford Cohen cannot go with his typical move, cannot file a motion after conviction, asking the judge to show mercy on the mandatory minimums. Once the jury says guilty on those counts, the math is already fixed, homie. The only way to avoid those mandatory minimums is to win that trial. And winning that trial meant creating reasonable doubt in front of a jury against the full weight of the government's documentary evidence. I'm telling you right now, Bradford Cohen looked at that matter and made his decision. And then there is the cooperation dynamic that any federal defense attorney on this case has to factor in. 9 defendants, all of them staring at life in prison simultaneously. Demarcus Glover is 22 years old. Corday Johnson is 19. Both were on ankle monitors themselves when they allegedly walked into that studio. Both have prior criminal histories the government will use as leverage. The federal government does not bring 9-person indictments and wait passively for trial. The moment they get them boys locked up, the case building starts. They identify who is the most exposed and most likely to cooperate, and then they make sure those people understand exactly what cooperation looks like compared to what a life sentence looks like. And you can best believe me, one of them little dudes gonna flip. If not more. Say, bruh, I'ma tell you this here. If any one of them boys decides that a cooperation agreement is better than life in federal prison, and the math on that calculating is not complicated when you're 19 and 22 years old. Apple Coin is no longer fighting documents and technology. That boy is fighting snitches on a case. He is fighting the co-defendant on the witness stand, who was allegedly in that room, describing exactly what happened from the inside. Apple Coin had to look at 8 other people in this indictment, all making their own survival calculation, and ask himself how many of them were going to fold before a trial date even arrives. The government has to prove specific advanced knowledge of specific defendants on specific counts. That argument is real, and in a different case with less documentary evidence, it could be thread that unravels the government's case. Yes, making that argument requires going to trial. It requires putting everything the government has in front of the jury and asking 12 people to find reasonable doubt inside a mountain of technology generated documentary
They gonna
evidence
take
that
your
existed before any attorney entered the picture. There is one more calculation Bradford Cohen had to make, and it is the one nobody in the legal media wants to say out loud. What happens to a defense attorney's brand when they take a case that size at trial and lose? Bradford Cohen's entire business model depends on the association between his name and famous defendants. A conviction at trial is not the same as a conviction while taking a plea. A conviction at trial in front of the entire hip-hop media landscape on a kidnap and robbery indictment with 9 defendants with cameras outside the courthouse every day of the proceeding is not a plea deal that can be framed as strategy. A trial loss is a trial loss. It is on the record. It is in the coverage. It follows the attorney the same way a prior conviction follows the defendant. Walking away before the verdict protects the brand in a way that losing the verdict never could. That boy Bradford Cohen weighed the evidence, weighed the exposure, weighed the cooperation risk from 8 co-defendants, and weighed what a very public federal trial loss would do to his reputation that he spent years building. And then he filed that motion to withdraw.
Yes, he did.
The attorneys who stepped into this case now are walking into something Bradford Cohen's withdrawal made more complicated. Bradford Cohen's public statements about the government's case are on record. Whatever he said publicly about the weaknesses in the government's position, those statements exist in press coverage, in interviews, in YouTube videos, and whatever he put on camera.
he would
The
still
defense attorney cannot walk those statements back, homie. They are part of the public record of this case, and the withdrawal motion is also part of the record. The new attorneys have to come into a case where the previous attorney publicly projected confidence and then quietly filed to leave. That is not a neutral starting position, homie. The jury pool has access to the internet. The coverage of this case has been extensive.
Yes, it
Bradford Cohen's
has.
confidence and Bradford Cohen withdrawal are out there for anyone who follows this case to see and draw their own conclusion from. New attorneys inherit that narrative on top of everything else. That boy Shiesty is now in a federal indictment without the attorney who built the legal foundation he's standing on. Bradford Cohen's fingerprints are on this case in ways that go beyond his withdrawal. The prior conviction he delivered is embedded in the current indictment. Ankle monitors that resulted from it is one of the government's primary location evidence sources. And the attorney who knew all of that better than anyone understood exactly how the prior case feeds into the current one, looked at 20 counts and 33 overt acts, and decided he was not going to be the one standing at the podium when the jury came back. It's the real reason that boy Bradford Cohen withdrew, homie. In federal court, what an attorney does speak louder than anything he had to say to a camera.
Mira esto.
Look, tell me this. How in the world is your first lawyer that helped you get the 5 years you got right now is just gonna drop out your case, but then politely tell the world, yeah, they don't have no cameras. Yeah, it's not a bad case. Well, if it wasn't a bad case, then why wouldn't you stay there for an easy W? You lying. Your actions are saying different.
I'm Ryan Rabel. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas. Thank you for coming. This week, 9 individuals, including well-known musical artists, kidnapped and robbed at gunpoint numerous victims at a music studio in Dallas, Texas. 8 of the 9 were arrested yesterday in Dallas, Memphis, and Nashville. These individuals who are charged and arrested include Lontrell Williams Jr., also known as Pooh Shiesty, Lontrell Williams Sr., Rodney Wright Jr., also known as Big 30.
Hope that people will wait to pass judgment on Rodney and these other individuals until all the facts come out.
Using Cellbrite, we were able to recover all of the deleted files and images, which were in fact deleted and not visible to the user.
Details this morning in the Pooh Shiesty case. We are getting a look at pictures that show the moments investigators say the Memphis rapper. This is from new government filings in the case. Good Morning Memphis was first to report that the feds say Pooh Shiesty is too dangerous to be given bond. And now we're getting a look at why.
He said we're going to look at why.
Shiesty and his crew are accused of kidnapping and robbing label boss Gucci Mane to get him released from his recording contract, Pooh Shiesty. This is the picture Shiesty's team took as proof that he had been released from the contract. And this picture shows why Gucci Mane would have signed a release deal. According to the feds, they say it's a Memphis Shiesty's holding Gucci Mane at gunpoint with an AK-47. We're also getting a look at what prosecutors say are text messages. Messages showing Shiesty recruit members of his gang to join him in the robbery.
Got
They
it.
say that first text is
Now
from
you see,
Shiesty
now you
under
see
the
why his
contact
lawyer
name
left.
Michael Myers. He says, I need
Now you see why Pooh Shiesty's lawyer left. This was Pooh Shiesty's lawyer the first time he got the 5 years. And he pleaded how his client was going to do this and change his ways when he get home. Now this nigga was finna plead again. Look at these text messages. Nigga, you literally anteed up niggas and said who gonna be the shooters as that's the most active from the set. I need 6 of y'all.
6 certified for Saturday, pulling up on WAP, plus 2 drivers. WAP is Gucci Mane's nickname. The feds say Pooh Shiesty took $440,000 worth of Gucci's property, a wedding band, watch, earrings, and cash.
That's a $500,000. He took a $500,000 off his body.
That boy smashed the phone. That is what the government says happened the moment law enforcement moved to arrest Rodney Lamont Wright Jr., known everywhere as Big 30. The government is right about what was on that phone before he smashed it. That one decision may have just ended his life as a free man. Because here is what Big 30 allegedly did not understand. The video was already gone. Not gone like deleted, gone like sitting on the server in a data center with a federal warrant addressed to it. This is not a story about whether Big 30 is guilty. That is for a jury to decide. This is a story about what happened when he picked up that phone and what the government says they got back from it anyway. While the title of this video says what it says. Before we get into that phone, let's establish something real quick. Big 30 and Shiesty built something together from Memphis, from the streets to records to the chart. Big 30 was not a feature on the album. He was the right hand of day one, the one who moved everywhere Shiesty moved. Now they're moving together. A federal complaint in the Northern District of Texas. From rap to a federal complaint, adjacent kidnapping and robbery case. That is the trajectory. That is how far this thing went, homie. The government alleges Big 30's role in the Dallas studio incident was specific and hands-on, traveling from Memphis to Dallas, retrieving the bag containing the firearm, delivering that firearm inside the recording room, barricading the door while the alleged kidnapping and robbery went down. And this is the part that matters most for everything we're about to talk about. Recording before signing on his cell phone. That boy put the camera on it and recorded everything. That decision, according to the government, is what is sitting in the middle of this entire case. On March 30th, the government moved to arrest Big 30. When they got to him, 2 things happened. First, they found multiple firearms inside his whip. Second,
How the fuck is you? How the hell you just did what you did to Pooh Shiesty and you riding around with hella straps? Why you got so many straps as one person in the whip?
attempted to destroy his cell phone. The firearms are their own charge, depending on his prior record. That is a potential standalone federal count under 18 USC Section 922G, on top of the 924C firearm count he already carries in his underlying case. More charges stacked on top of more charges. But the phone, that's where this gets painful to watch. You get destroying that phone, if the government can prove it was intentional, it's a separate federal crime under 18 USC Section 1519, obstruction of justice, homie, up to 20 years on top of everything else. The trip part is this here. The government does not even.
You can get 20 years. I heard of obstruction of justice. Now, in the state level, you're not looking at no goddamn 20 years. But when it comes to the feds, by him just breaking the phone, we can forget about the guns that he got caught with when he got arrested, the several guns that he wasn't even supposed to have. Nigga, you busted a phone and that can be nigga. So if you bust a phone and get 20, what the hell is Pooh Shiesty gonna get? And what the hell is that nigga gonna get by telling Gucci you ain't leaving, bitch, with the AK? Nigga, you took a picture and a video of that shit? You niggas is dumb.
You don't have to prove what was on the phone to make that stick. They just have to prove he destroyed it on purpose. A federal investigation was in motion, so he committed a crime to cover up evidence of another crime, and the cover up did not even work. That is where we are right now, homie.
The $7 meal
Hey,
with two.
that's the crazy part. Nigga, you did all that. You did all that, and you still can get a dub. Man, you did all that to try to cover your ass. That let me know you didn't go to school in Memphis.
Here's the part that makes this so hard to understand from a street logic standpoint. People think smashing the phone destroys the evidence. In 2026, against the FBI and the ATF, that is not how it works. That has not been how it works for years. Every iPhone is designed to back itself up automatically. Every night when that phone is plugged in and on, Wi-Fi is sending your messages, your photos, your videos, your call logs, your location history, your deleted items, all of it to Apple servers, not your phone storage, Apple storage. A server sitting in the data center that has a legal address the federal government can put a warrant on. When Big Dirty smashed that phone, he smashed the copy. Your original was already somewhere else.
And you know what they can't do that to? I know y'all don't want them phones, but Androids, they can't do that to. iPhones got that backup cloud, not Androids. I know everybody don't want them because they hella cheap, like, but
the government already had a warrant addressed to that somewhere else before that boy even touched the device. Think about what that means specifically for this case. The government alleges 30 recorded the full signing on his cell phone during the incident at the data studio. That video existed and iCloud was doing what iCloud does every night. There's no reason to believe it was not. That video synced to Apple servers before March 30th ever happened. The smashing of the phone did not reach the video, homie. The video was already out of that boy hands. I'm not talking to the street talking. That is how technology works. And that is why the thumbnail on this video says what it says. Let's talk about the two ways government gets phone data back, because both of them are in play right here. The first way is Celebrite. This is the forensic tool the FBI and ATF use on physical devices. When they get a phone, even a smashed one, they send it to a forensic lab.
Using Cellbrite, we were able to recover all of the deleted files and images, which were in fact deleted and not visible to the user.
Digital forensics squad consists of myself and 4 others. We intake little over a year.
Inside every iPhone is a flash memory chip. That chip is small. It is built to be durable, and it does not automatically fail when the screen shatters and the housing crack. A forensic lab can physically remove that chip from the circuit board, connect it directly to a reader, and pull the raw data straight out of it with no operating system, no password, no encryption barrier in most cases. The government also says Big Dirty destroyed the phone at the moment of arrest, meaning that boy's phone was on and actively being used. That matters because the phone that is on and unlocked has its encryption key.
You know what I know he was doing? Since Big 30 was doing all this other stuff, you know what else I knew he was doing? When they was like, come out with your hands up. Big 30 ain't never been to jail before. This nigga was calling somebody. And then when they got, I know it's some officers, I don't know if it's probably on camera, but I know some officers is like, hell yeah, when he seen us, that's when he crushed the phone. But you gotta prove it. You gotta prove it. If it's on it's on a body cam, Big 30, you do. But to crush a phone and get 20 years, sheesh, nigga, they ain't playing.
He's active in memory. That state makes the forensic extraction easier, not harder. He may have picked the worst possible moment to make that move. Celebrite's physical analyzer software then takes whatever the chip produced and turns it into a report. Messages organized by date, photos with GPS coordinates showing exactly where they were taken, videos with timestamps, location history plotted on the map, deleted content, reconstruction from storage the phone had not yet overwritten, all of it formatted so a jury can read it on a large screen in a federal courtroom. The second way is the cloud warrant, and this is the one that makes the physical destruction almost beside the point. The government writes a warrant application on probable cause that evidence of a crime exists in a specific Apple ID account. A federal magistrate signs it. It goes to Apple Legal's compliance team. Apple produces the iCloud backups, the photos, the messages, the videos, the FaceTime logs, the app data, everything that synced to that cloud for that time period covered by that warrant. Apple formats the production so it can be imported directly into the same software. The government ends up with a report that looks identical to what they had gotten from the physical phone without needing the phone. The phone is in pieces on the ground and the report is complete anyway. Both tracks ran simultaneously. The physical device going to the forensic lab in the cloud.
Do you hear how this nigga is breaking it down, but it's so true? Man, I just want to put my head down and shake my head. Pooh Shiesty. Oh, poo poo. Shy shy. Boy, that's just like Aunt Hefe. You mean to believe you mean to tell me you went to jail with $1 million bond, and when you went to court, it went up another million and a half, and you gonna tell me it's all good? I'm still coming home. Pooh Shiesty, your lawyer from the first case has gladly left your side. But in front of the public, he gonna say, yeah, they don't have this, they don't have that, they don't have this. Oh yeah, you right. They didn't have camera footage there. But oh, when you found out Big 30 tried to crush the phone and it's on the paperwork, when they try to make the arrest, and you know what they're gonna do with that phone, shit, nigga, I would have got out of there too and speak well of you, but well enough to where, nigga, I'm not sinking that shit with your dumb ass. Nigga, this was your first lawyer. You got all the money in the world to pay this man. And he said, yeah, all that money ain't finna get me that L fucking with you. Facts.
Warrant going to Apple at the same time. Big 30 eliminated one copy of the evidence. The government had 2 more. I swear, bruh, you can't make this shit up.
Stonefire non-hunters, ancient bacon traditions.
Because every time I get to talking, that's every time I get to talking on my live, it's just like the AI, they just pick up on it. Hey, shout out everybody too, man. This week I did 7 days, I did 2 million views. I posted it too, so everybody be thinking I'm lying and shit like that. Yeah, nigga, 7 days I did 2 million views. Let's get it though.
Here is what this looks like when it gets to a federal courtroom. In this case right here, it's definitely heading to a federal courtroom. The government called a digital forensics examiner to the witness stand. FBI or ATF agent trained and certified on the tools. The prosecutor walks them through the extraction. What tool was used, what condition the phone or the chip was in, what was recovered, and the report goes up on the big screen in front of the jury. I'm telling you right now, bro, that video gonna play in that courtroom if that boy try to take this to trial in front of 12 jurors on a large screen with the timestamp and the GPS metadata showing exactly when and where it was recorded. That right there is what consciousness of guilt argument looks like in real time. The government does not just show the jury the video, they show the jury that the defendant tried to destroy the video and then they play it anyway. That combination right there, the attempt to destroy evidence followed by the evidence itself, is one of the most damaging sequences the jury can ever watch. Defense is not without arguments though. Chain of custody on the physical evidence. Extraction completeness. It does not always get everything. Interpretation of what that data actually shows.
Yeah, but they got rapper names behind them. And you can't get no jury to believe that this nigga phone was already broke up like that upon getting arrested. Cause if you can prove that he was on the phone and texting before it was broke up like that, the jury's gonna be like, hell yeah, that nigga, come on, man. That's like your kid telling you, like, I broke the phone on accident. You see how crushed up it is. You be like, that ain't no accident. You did that on purpose. And they're gonna have the device. They're gonna show them how it looks. Big 30, you better duck.
Destruction was intentional or happened in the chaos of an arrest. And I'm gonna tell you this here. State of mind is always contested. The video is what the government says it is. Have it from the cloud backup. Those are arguments being made against the jury that already watched the video. That is a hard place to be standing, you heard me? Bring it all the way back to what this means for Rodney Wright Jr., aka Big 30. He is charged in the underlying case alongside Pooh Shiesty and 7 other defendants. The government's out of
Bruh, if you had big areola nipples like that, nigga, them look like girl nipples, bruh. Put your shirt on, bruh. I mean, I ain't never been no Big 30 fan and stuff like that. I ain't really watched Fat Boy like this, but boy, he got some cold nipples like a girl on him, like out of pocket though.
allegation against him are specific. Not that he was in the building, but that boy was active, delivering the firearm, barricading the door, record what happened on his phone. Then on March 30th, the government says he added a obstruction charge to everything he was already facing and did it with a move that forensic technology made pointless before that boy even made it. The FBI did not just show up to an arrest without cloud warrant was already running. Backup was already being pulled before that boy 30 even smashed the phone. Him smashing the phone was not a plan. It was that boy.
Damn. So they already knew they knew your text messages, they knew your call log, they knew your location. Oh man, this dude breaking it down. They was already on the Big 30. That's how they probably got the text messages with Pooh Shiesty talking about everybody, I need 6, woo, this, and that, hitters, woo, woo. That they was already watching Big 30. They had they was already watching it when they pulled up to serve him the warrant. So when he broke the phone, they knew exactly who he was talking to. Crazy work.
Panicking in front of federal agents with a phone you allegedly used to record a kidnapping is not the move, homie. These are the government's allegations, not mine. Every charge has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in front of a jury. That process is underway, homie. But if the government has what they say they have, and the technology I just walked you through explains exactly how they would have gotten it, the title of this video is not clickbait. It's just the math, homie.
Yeah, that's crazy work. I got another one for y'all too. It don't stop. Man, I could play so many different ones. What I won't be playing is a shooter get no DP. That's dumb. That's dumb YouTubery. I ain't finna talk about no shooter getting DP. Who cares, man? You should have got whooped out. But yeah, Big 30. You through, baby, you through.
Vietnam with geometries means
You through, baby, you through. Nigga, you through, baby, you through. And that's all I gotta say, bro. You just duck. When you go to court,
bonds that
you
matter, moments that move you.
duck, gang. That's the best advice I could give you, man. And if I was y'all homie, nigga, on that case, I just go to court and shut my mouth and keep my head down and really duck. Like I mean literally duck every time I go to court, cause nigga, every time they say 50 years, I'm like, oh, my ears hurt. 50 years. Oh shit. Like I'm gonna be on that, nigga. I'm gonna be like, God damn, nigga, you niggas dumb.
You know, we ain't got a prop to crop out here. We slug and shit. Nigga ain't gonna die.
When federal agents raided Choppa Gang's operations, they didn't just find drugs and guns. They uncovered text messages that revealed the true nature of Memphis's most dangerous criminal enterprise. Messages like, if they got a car and ain't using it, that hoe took. Got a gun and don't want to use it, that hoe took. Direct orders from Pooh Shiesty himself, commanding his crew of over 50 members to commit acts of violence across the city.
I feel like it's a lot of pressure, but same time, like, it's a lot of like anticipation for real, you know?
This ain't your typical street gang, fam. We're talking about a criminal organization so sophisticated that the FBI had to launch a multi-year investigation just to understand how deep their operations went. From federal weapons trafficking to coordinated hits, from robbing rival gangs to accidentally releasing convicted murderers, Choppa Gang has left a trail of chaos that stretches from the projects of Memphis to the federal courthouse. But here's what makes them truly terrifying.
I had to come with this particular song because of like the message, you know, it fit like around a back type of vibe, you know what I'm saying?
Their leader was simultaneously one of hip hop's biggest rising stars.
While Pooh Shiesty was collaborating with Lil Durk and getting cosigns from Gucci Mane, he was also orchestrating a criminal empire that the feds say operated like a military unit. One member thought he spotted an enemy and opened fire, but it was just an innocent civilian who's now paralyzed for life. Another member walked out of jail after being convicted of murder because of a paperwork error and is still on the run. Stay locked in until the end, because the federal indictment documents I'm about to break down will show you exactly why law enforcement considers Choppa Gang the most dangerous criminal organization to ever emerge from the South.
50 gangs across the city of Memphis. Tonight, we got to look inside the work MPD's multi-gang unit does daily, tracking the crimes these gangs commit.
The text messages, the weapons cache, and the coordinated violence. This is the complete story of how the feds brought down Memphis's most feared gang. Before we dive into the chaos, you need to understand why federal law enforcement became so obsessed with taking down Choppa Gang. This wasn't just local police dealing with neighborhood beef. This was a multi-agency federal investigation that treated Choppa Gang as a national security threat. The FBI's Memphis field office had been monitoring gang activity in the city for years, but Choppa Gang represented something they'd never seen before.
Who know each other or people who are related, but that does not take away the fact that there is still gang-related crimes happening in the city.
Most street gangs operate within limited territories and focus on local drug sales or petty crime. But Choppa Gang was different. They were operating across state lines, trafficking federal weapons, and using social media and music to coordinate criminal activities on a scale that demanded federal intervention. What really caught the feds' attention was the sophistication of their operations. These weren't just random acts of violence. They were coordinated attacks planned through encrypted communications, executed with military-grade weapons, and covered up through a network of associates that spanned multiple states.
48 active gangs in Memphis. The Memphis Police Department's multi-gang unit.
When federal agents started intercepting their communications, they realized they were dealing with something closer to organized crime than traditional gang activity. The turning point came when intelligence analysts noticed patterns in the violence. Shootings, robberies, and intimidation tactics were happening in sequence, often coordinated through group messages that federal wiretaps were picking up. The feds realized that Pooh Shiesty wasn't just a rapper who happened to be involved in crime. He was actively using his platform and resources to fund and direct criminal enterprise.
MPD leaders said the subset gangs are what causes some of the violent crimes around the city.
We have to match what we have in the city, what they call subset.
Memphis has always been a violent city, but Choppa Gang's activities were pushing the murder rate to unprecedented levels. Federal statistics showed that areas where Choppa Gang operated saw a 40% increase in violent crime between 2019 and 2021. The gang wasn't just participating in existing violence. They were creating new cycles of retaliation and fear that were destabilizing entire neighborhoods. What made the federal case even more compelling was the interstate nature of their crimes. Choppa Gang members were documented traveling to Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and other states to commit robberies and drug deals. This interstate activity automatically triggered federal jurisdiction and allowed agencies like the FBI, DEA, and ATF to pool their resources for a comprehensive investigation.
Violent men and women, according to MPD.
That would come up from time to time. Some of them are more active than others. The team recently did a couple of operations.
And one thing I do know is 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to everybody, especially if you blazing like you supposed to. Happy 4th of July to all the free people that ain't locked up. Hope you get your burgers on, your ribs and all that, man. We free, man.
Represented a new model of criminal organization, one that used social media, music, and celebrity status to recruit members and coordinate activities. Traditional law enforcement tactics weren't sufficient to deal with a gang that could reach thousands of potential recruits through Instagram posts and YouTube videos. The federal investigation into Choppa Gang's origins revealed a transformation that law enforcement officials describe as unprecedented in modern gang history. What started as a neighborhood crew in the Cane Creek apartments became a criminal organization that the FBI would eventually classify as a continuing criminal enterprise, the same designation used for major drug cartels and organized crime families. Lontrell Williams, better known as Pooh Shiesty, didn't just stumble into gang leadership.
Prosecutors say Pooh Shiesty was part of the group that ended up in this parking lot that October afternoon where the shots flew.
Federal documents show he systematically built Choppa Gang into a hierarchical organization with defined roles, territories, and operational procedures. Unlike traditional gangs that evolve organically, Choppa Gang was designed from the beginning to be a criminal business. The Cane Creek Apartments on Memphis' south side provided the perfect recruiting ground. Federal housing projects create concentrated poverty, limited opportunities, and social conditions that make young people vulnerable to gang recruitment. But Shiesty's approach was different from typical gang leaders. He offered not just protection and belonging, but a vision of wealth and success that extended beyond the neighborhood.
I really was getting it together as I was in there doing my time, but I couldn't finish it because I'm getting new experiences and I'm going through new things. And so I wrapped it up first day in the studio.
Federal wiretaps revealed that Shiesty studied successful criminal organizations and deliberately modeled Choppa Gang's structure on what he learned. He established clear chains of command, specialized roles for different members, and communication protocols designed to avoid law enforcement detection. This wasn't accidental. It was strategic planning by someone who understood both the streets and the system. His cousin Rodney Wright, known as Big 30, became the organization's primary enforcer and military commander. Federal documents describe Big 30 as responsible for weapons procurement, training new recruits in combat tactics, and planning violent operations. His nickname references his preferred weapon, a .30 caliber rifle.
A lot deeper than just the music stuff that most people might not even realize.
Yeah, it's deep than that. I've been knowing him before, right? We only been rapping a couple years. I've been knowing him a lot of years.
But federal agents discovered he had access to a much more extensive arsenal. The early recruitment strategy focused on young men who had already demonstrated willingness to use violence but lacked the organization and resources to be truly dangerous. Choppa Gang provided weapons, training, and most importantly, a sense of purpose and identity that many recruits had never experienced. Federal psychologists who studied the organization noted that Shiesty was particularly skilled at identifying and exploiting the psychological vulnerabilities of potential members. What made Choppa Gang's recruitment so effective was the combination of fear and aspiration. Potential members saw the wealth and success that came with gang membership, but they also understood the consequences of refusing to join, or worse, opposing the organization.
Tonight, a family is grieving after a deadly shooting in South Memphis. Dozens of law enforcement, including U.S. Marshals and Memphis police, swarmed South 3rd Street and Mallory Avenue this afternoon.
Federal investigators documented numerous cases of young men who were essentially forced to choose between joining Choppa Gang or becoming their targets. The gang's territorial expansion followed a deliberate pattern that federal analysts compared to military conquest. They would identify rival crews or independent operators in specific neighborhoods, then use overwhelming force to eliminate competition and establish control. This wasn't random violence. It was systematic territorial acquisition designed to maximize criminal opportunities while minimizing law enforcement interference. By 2019, federal surveillance had identified Choppa Gang operations in over a dozen Memphis neighborhoods, with satellite operations in surrounding counties and other states.
Time information found located in the house in the insulation.
The organization had grown from a small crew of childhood friends to a criminal network with over 50 active members and hundreds of associates. This rapid expansion caught the attention of federal agencies who recognized that traditional local law enforcement was insufficient to address the threat. Federal law enforcement's interest in Choppa Gang intensified as their criminal activities became more sophisticated and violent. What started as petty robberies and neighborhood disputes evolved into a criminal enterprise that federal agents describe as unprecedented in its scope and brutality. The transformation began around 2018, when federal wiretaps first picked up communications suggesting that Choppa Gang was moving beyond traditional street crime.
Leaders also noted in the past 2 months of their fugitive task force, they have arrested over 600 people. 400 had violent warrants.
Instead of random robberies and drug sales, they were planning coordinated operations that required advanced surveillance, multiple participants, and sophisticated escape plans. Federal analysts noted that the communications showed military-style planning and execution. One of the earliest federal red flags was Choppa Gang's approach to weapons acquisition. Most street gangs acquire firearms through informal networks, stolen guns, straw purchases, or trades with other criminals. But federal ATF agents discovered that Choppa Gang was systematically purchasing weapons through multiple channels, including licensed dealers, gun shows, and interstate trafficking networks.
Recently,
Gang prosecution.
Swiss brand.
Oh, that shit went far. I don't know why it went that far, but I'm gonna have to go back. But yeah, you talking about this nigga from Memphis. So with being from Memphis, they got all even down here in Georgia, they got all the gun show. It's like a swap meet, bro. All you gotta do is go up in there and just look around and be like, how much you want for this? How much you want for that? How much you want for this? You want to trade? Be like, oh, what you got? This, I got that, blah 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 blah. That's how they get down, bro. It ain't nothing that you don't already know. Like that's just what it is. Like that's how they getting down, bro. You can get a gun like it ain't nothing. So if you ever come down south, you can get something that nobody else can get. Like it's that serious down here. Like, bro, they'll give you a strap like it ain't nothing.
Activities became more sophisticated and violent. What started as petty robberies and neighborhood disputes evolved into a criminal enterprise that federal agents describe as unprecedented in its scope and brutality. The transformation began around 2018 when federal wiretaps first picked up communications suggesting that Choppa Gang was moving beyond traditional street crime.
leaders also noted in the past 2 months of their fugitive task force, they have arrested over 600 people. 400 had violent warrants.
Instead of random robberies and drug sales, they were planning coordinated operations that required advanced surveillance, multiple participants, and sophisticated escape plans. Federal analysts noted that their communications showed military-style planning and execution. One of the earliest federal red flags was Choppa Gang's approach to weapons acquisition. Most street gangs acquire firearms through informal networks, stolen guns, straw purchases, or trades with other criminals. But federal ATF agents discovered that Choppa Gang was systematically purchasing weapons through multiple channels, including licensed dealers, gun shows, and interstate trafficking networks.
Recently, the department had Operation All Off Boyd. That was in the area of Tate and Boyd, where much of the gang is located.
The gang's weapons inventory, as documented by federal agents, included assault rifles, high-capacity handguns, and most concerning illegal modifications that converted semi-automatic weapons to full auto capability. These switches are federal crimes that carry mandatory minimum sentences, but Choppa Gang members were manufacturing and distributing them throughout the Memphis area. Federal DEA agents also noticed that Choppa Gang's drug operations were more sophisticated than typical street-level dealing. Instead of selling small quantities to individual users, they were moving wholesale quantities to other criminal organizations.
Another crisis was brewing in South Memphis hard. Deaths from opioid and other drug addictions have gone up since 2020, and local organizations, along with the Shelby County Drug Court, are working to get people more treatment.
Federal financial investigations revealed that the gang was generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in drug revenue in weapons, vehicles, and operational expansion. But what really caught federal attention was the gang's use of technology and social media to coordinate.
I mean, like, if he was getting all this money out the streets and flipping all these alleged drugs and guns, why was he so on that 10 million to crash out the way he did? He was acting like he didn't have no bread in jail or something like that. If they saying him and his gang was selling all these choppers and selling all these drugs, then why did he come home first day out like he was thirsty, his only out was that or working at 7-Eleven?
Coordinate criminal activities. Federal cybercrime specialists discovered that Choppa Gang members were using encrypted messaging apps, burner phones, and coded language to plan operations and avoid law enforcement detection. This level of operational security was typically associated with international criminal organizations, not local street gangs. The federal investigation revealed that Pooh Shiesty was personally involved in planning and directing criminal operations even as his music career was taking off. Wiretapped conversations showed him giving specific orders for robberies, discussing weapons purchases, and coordinating retaliation against rivals. This wasn't a case of a successful artist who had distanced himself from street activities. He was actively managing a criminal enterprise. Federal agents were particularly concerned about Choppa Gang's recruitment and training methods. Unlike traditional gangs that rely on informal initiation processes, Choppa Gang had developed systematic training programs for new members. Federal surveillance documented training sessions where recruits were taught weapons handling, surveillance techniques, and operational security measures. The gang's financial operations also attracted federal scrutiny. Money laundering investigations revealed that Choppa Gang was using legitimate businesses, music industry connections, and complex financial transactions to hide criminal proceeds. Federal financial crime specialists discovered bank accounts, real estate purchases, and business investments that appeared designed to legitimize drug and robbery proceeds. Perhaps most concerning to federal agents, Choppa Gang was beginning to corrupt local institutions. Federal investigations documented attempts to bribe police officers, intimidate witnesses, and influence court proceedings. This type of institutional corruption represented a direct threat to the rule of law that demanded federal intervention. The interstate nature of Choppa Gang's activities became increasingly apparent as federal agents tracked their operations across multiple states. Members were documented committing crimes in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and other jurisdictions, often coordinating their activities through the same communication networks used for local operations. This interstate activity automatically triggered federal jurisdiction and allowed agencies to pool resources for a comprehensive investigation. The war between Choppa Gang and EBGE Jizzle's Bezel Gang marked a turning point in federal law enforcement's approach to Memphis gang violence. What local police initially viewed as typical street beef, federal agents recognized as a coordinated campaign of violence that threatened public safety on an unprecedented scale. Federal wiretaps captured the planning and execution of the robbery that sparked the conflict. Unlike spontaneous street crime, the attack on EBG's operation showed military-style coordination of federal agents compared to organized crime hits. Choppa Gang members conducted advanced surveillance, planned multiple escape routes, and coordinated their attack through encrypted communications that federal cybercrime specialists were monitoring. The robbery itself was particularly brazen. Choppa Gang didn't just steal money and drugs, they deliberately humiliated their victims in ways designed to provoke retaliation. Federal behavioral analysts noted that this wasn't typical criminal behavior focused on profit, but psychological warfare designed to establish dominance and trigger a violent response that would justify further escalation. When Pooh Shiesty turned the robbery into the hit song Back in Blood with Lil Durk, federal agents realized they were dealing with something entirely new, a criminal organization that was using mainstream media to taunt rivals and recruit new members. The song's success brought national attention to Memphis gang culture, but it also provided federal investigators with detailed evidence of criminal activities. Federal communications intercepts revealed that the song's release was coordinated with planned retaliation against EBG. Choppa Gang members were documented discussing how the song would disrespect their rivals and force them to respond with violence. This showed federal agents that the gang was deliberately escalating conflicts to maintain their reputation and expand their territory. EBGE Jizzle's response, recording his own version of Back in Blood, was monitored by federal agents who recognized it as more than just a diss track. The song contains specific details about Choppa Gang's operations, territories, and members that federal investigators used to corroborate their own intelligence. In effect, the rap beef was providing federal agents with real-time intelligence about gang activities. The shooting of EBGE Jizzle represented a significant escalation that brought federal attention to the conflict. Federal ballistics experts analyzed the weapons used and determined that they were part of the same arsenal that Choppa Gang had been accumulating through their weapons trafficking operations. The shooting wasn't random street violence. It was a coordinated hit using federal-level firepower. Federal surveillance teams documented Choppa Gang's celebration of the shooting through social media posts and intercepted communications. Members were recorded discussing the attack in detail, providing federal prosecutors with evidence of conspiracy and coordination. The gang's willingness to openly celebrate violence showed federal agents that they felt immune from law enforcement consequences.
Thailand with G Adventures means going deep.
And that's why you got Pooh Shiesty right now sitting in jail thinking he could buy the top of the line lawyer to get up out of jail. And you got a top of the line lawyer like Toodles, nigga. You on your own, bruh. I can't save you this time, big dog. I mean, I can't fault him, man, because If you know you're gonna lose, why even fight the case? I don't care how much you pay me.
This murder rate caught federal attention when statistical analysis showed that areas where Choppa Gang and EBG operated saw a 60% increase in violent crime during the peak of their war. Federal crime analysts determined that the gang conflict was creating secondary violence as other criminal organizations chose sides or tried to exploit the chaos. Federal agents were particularly concerned about the weapons being used in the conflict. Ballistics analysis revealed that both sides had access to assault rifles, high-capacity magazines, and illegal modifications that federal agents typically associated with international arms trafficking. The level of firepower being deployed in Memphis neighborhoods was unprecedented in the city's history. The federal investigation revealed that the EBG conflict was being used by Choppa Gang as a recruitment tool. Federal surveillance documented gang members using the war to attract new recruits who wanted to be part of a winning organization. The violence wasn't just about territory or revenge. It was a marketing strategy designed to build the gang's reputation and expand their membership. Federal financial investigations showed that the conflict was also profitable for Choppa Gang. As they eliminated competition and established control over EBG's former territories, they gained access to new drug markets and criminal opportunities. Federal analysts estimated that the gang's revenue increased by over 200% during the peak of the conflict. Federal law enforcement's analysis of Choppa Gang revealed a disturbing pattern of what they termed crash dummy culture, the systematic encouragement of reckless violence by gang members willing to sacrifice their lives and freedom for the organization. The case of Lil Hank became a federal case study in how gang leadership manipulates vulnerable young men into committing senseless acts of violence. Federal behavioral analysts who studied Lil Hank's case noted that his actions weren't the result of spontaneous anger or mistaken identity. They were the predictable outcome of a gang culture that rewarded extreme violence and punished any sign of weakness or hesitation. Federal wiretaps revealed that Choppa Gang leadership deliberately cultivated this mindset among their members. The shooting that left an innocent civilian paralyzed was captured on federal surveillance equipment that had been monitoring Choppa Gang activities. Federal agents watched in real time as Lil Hank opened fire on what he thought was an enemy vehicle, demonstrating the kind of reckless disregard for public safety that made the gang a federal priority. Federal crime scene analysis revealed that Lil Hank had fired over 20 rounds from a high-powered rifle in a residential neighborhood during daylight hours. The ballistics report showed that bullets struck multiple buildings, vehicles, and nearly hit several other civilians who happened to be in the area. Federal agents realized that this wasn't just gang violence. It was domestic terrorism that threatened the entire community. The federal investigation into Lil Hank's background revealed how Choppa Gang's recruitment and indoctrination process created crash dummies willing to throw their lives away for the organization. Federal psychologists noted that Hank had been systematically isolated from positive influences and surrounded by gang members who reinforced the idea that extreme violence was not just acceptable, but necessary for respect and survival. Federal communications intercepts revealed that Pooh Shiesty and other gang leaders continued to glorify Lil Hank even after his arrest, using his case as an example of loyalty and dedication that other members should emulate. Federal agents realized that the gang was using Hank's imprisonment as a recruitment tool, telling potential members that this was the kind of sacrifice expected from true gang members. The federal analysis of Choppa Gang's crash dummy culture revealed a systematic pattern of manipulation and exploitation. Young men were recruited with promises of money, respect, and protection, but were ultimately used as expendable soldiers in the gang's criminal operations. Federal investigators documented dozens of cases where gang members had been encouraged to take extreme risks that resulted in death or lengthy prison sentences. Federal surveillance revealed that Choppa Gang leadership had developed specific strategies for identifying and recruiting potential crash dummies. They targeted young men with histories of trauma, limited family support, and few legitimate opportunities for success. Federal social workers noted that the gang was essentially preying on the most vulnerable members of the community. The federal investigation showed that Lil Hank's case wasn't isolated. It was part of a pattern of reckless violence that federal agents attributed directly to Choppa Gang's leadership and culture. Federal crime analysts identified over a dozen similar incidents where gang members had committed senseless acts of violence that endangered innocent civilians. Federal prosecutors used Lil Hank's case as evidence of Choppa Gang's continuing criminal enterprise status, arguing that the gang's systematic encouragement of reckless violence represented a threat to public safety that required federal intervention. The case became a cornerstone of the federal government's argument that Choppa Gang wasn't just a local gang, but a criminal organization that threatened national security. Federal victim services specialists worked with the civilian who was paralyzed in Lil Hank's attack, documenting the long-term impact of gang violence on innocent community members. The victim's story became a powerful tool for federal prosecutors seeking to demonstrate the human cost of Choppa Gang's activities and justify the resources being devoted to the investigation. The case of White Grape provided federal investigators with unique insights into Choppa Gang's recruitment strategies and the psychological manipulation used to control gang members. Federal behavioral analysts studied his case as an example of how the gang exploited racial dynamics and personal insecurities to create loyal soldiers willing to commit murder.
I did it when I came home and everything just hit me and it came out perfect. My producer, TP.
Federal surveillance had been monitoring White Grape's activities as part of their broader investigation into Choppa Gang's operations. Federal agents documented his recruitment process, noting how gang leaders used his racial identity as both a tool for manipulation and a source of constant pressure to prove his loyalty through increasingly extreme acts. The federal investigation revealed that White Grape's acceptance into Choppa Gang wasn't accidental. It was a calculated decision by gang leadership to demonstrate their power and attract attention from other potential recruits. Federal analysts noted that having a white member in a predominantly black gang served multiple strategic purposes for the organization.
It's like, man, if they watching you like okay, we could say P4K. They watching Lil Baby too. But let him do the things that Pooh Shiesty do. Pooh Shiesty, you ain't even been out 90 days. And you went back to jail for the same exact type thing. With an ankle monitor.
Like, when people doubted, they knew, like,
Federal wiretaps captured conversations where gang members discussed White Grape's status within the organization, revealing the constant pressure he faced to prove himself worthy of membership. Federal psychologists noted that this pressure created a psychological dynamic that made him particularly vulnerable to manipulation and likely to commit extreme acts of violence. The robbery that led to White Grape's downfall was monitored by federal surveillance teams who had been tracking his activities as part of their broader investigation. Federal agents watched as he attempted to make a drug purchase, was robbed and beaten, and then faced immediate expulsion from the gang for his perceived weakness. Federal behavioral analysts noted that Pooh Shiesty's decision to kick White Grape out of the gang wasn't based on the robbery itself, but on the gang's need to maintain an image of invincibility and strength. Federal investigators realized that the gang's reputation so important to its operations that any sign of weakness, even from a single member, threatened the entire organization's credibility. The federal investigation revealed that White Grape's decision to commit murder wasn't spontaneous revenge. It was a calculated attempt to regain his status within an organization that had become central to his identity. Federal psychologists noted that the gang had successfully isolated him from other sources of self-worth and belonging, making membership in Choppa Gang essential to his psychological survival. Federal surveillance teams documented White Grape's planning and execution of the murder, noting the methodical way he tracked down his victim and carried out the killing. Federal agents realized that his actions demonstrated the kind of training and indoctrination that Choppa Gang provided to its members, turning ordinary young men into efficient killers.
this little dude for real, like, he who he is, so I'm a producer every time.
The federal analysis of White Grape's case revealed how Choppa Gang used racial dynamics to maintain control over its members. Federal investigators noted that the gang deliberately created situations where members felt they had to prove their loyalty through extreme acts, knowing that this pressure would result in violence that served the organization's interests. Federal prosecutors used White Grape's case as evidence of Choppa Gang's systematic manipulation and exploitation of vulnerable individuals. The case demonstrated how the gang recruited members specifically to use them as expendable soldiers in their criminal operations, with no regard for the human cost of their actions. The federal investigation showed that White Grape's murder case wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of violence that federal agents attributed directly to Choppa Gang's recruitment and indoctrination strategies. Federal crime analysts identified multiple cases where gang members had committed murders or other serious crimes in attempts to prove their loyalty to the organization. Federal victim services specialists worked with the family of White Grape's murder victim, documenting how gang violence destroys not just the lives of gang members, but innocent community members who become targets of their desperate attempts to maintain status within criminal organizations. The case of Anthony Choppa Wop Green represents one of the most embarrassing failures in federal law enforcement history and demonstrates the ongoing threat posed by Choppa gang members even after their supposed capture. Federal agencies are currently conducting an intensive manhunt for a convicted murderer whose accidental release has become a national security concern.
Been with me from the start. His first song, my first song was his first beat. So, it's the chemistry. Said, I ain't fumble but shit. The whole world been waiting on us. I can't fumble shit. The whole world been waiting on us. You got this strong believer.
Federal investigators had been tracking Choppa Wop's activities for years as part of their broader investigation into Choppa Gang's criminal enterprise. Federal surveillance teams documented his involvement in multiple violent crimes, including the 2020 murder of Octavius Atkins that would eventually lead to his conviction. The federal analysis of Choppa Wop's murder case revealed the systematic nature of Choppa Gang's violent operations. Federal ballistics experts determined that the weapon used in the killing was part of the gang's shared arsenal, and federal communications intercepts showed that the murder was discussed and planned through the same networks used for other gang activities. Federal prosecutors worked closely with local authorities to ensure Choppa Wop's conviction, viewing his case as a crucial component of their broader strategy to dismantle Choppa Gang's leadership structure. Federal agents testified at his trial, providing evidence gathered through years of surveillance and investigation. The accidental release of a convicted murderer created a federal crisis that required immediate response from multiple agencies. Federal marshals, FBI agents, and other law enforcement personnel were deployed to Memphis within hours of discovering the mistake, launching one of the largest manhunts in the city's history. Federal analysis of the jail's computer systems revealed how the clerical error occurred, but also exposed broader security vulnerabilities that federal authorities worry could be exploited by other criminal organizations. The incident prompted a federal review of jail procedures and communication protocols throughout the region. Federal behavioral analysts studying Choppa Wop's case noted that his escape represents more than just a fugitive situation. It's a test of the federal government's ability to maintain control over dangerous criminals. His continued freedom undermines public confidence in the justice system and potentially encourages other gang members to believe they can evade federal prosecution.
At Car and Driver, we tackle the hard-hitting questions. In the car seat, click in on the first.
Well, I know a boy that caught that body. If he been out, what they said about like 2 years now, and they ain't found him, you're not finna find that brother. And I bet you, right where you hide, it's just like old boy said with Julio Fulio case. You hide right in the hood, they won't even expect it. You go try to go somewhere, that's where they find you.
Terrorists or major organized crime figures. Federal agents have deployed advanced surveillance technology, coordinated with international law enforcement agencies, and offered substantial rewards for information leading to his capture.
I can't fumble it. I can't fumble. Couple dudes that was help me with my.
Federal intelligence analysts believe that Choppa Wop's escape was facilitated by remaining Choppa gang members and associates who helped him disappear immediately after his release. Federal wiretaps and surveillance operations are ongoing as agents attempt to track down the network that may be hiding him. The federal investigation has revealed that Choppa Wop's escape has become a rallying point for remaining Choppa gang members and other criminal organizations who view his freedom as evidence that the federal government can be defeated. Federal agents worry that his continued freedom could inspire other gang members to take greater risks and commit more serious crimes. Federal prosecutors are treating Choppa Wop's case as a matter of national importance, arguing that his capture is essential to maintaining the credibility of federal law enforcement and the justice system. The resources being devoted to his manhunt reflect the federal government's determination to prove that no criminal, regardless of circumstances, can escape federal justice. Federal victim services specialists continue to work with the family of Octavius Atkins, who have been traumatized by the knowledge that their loved one's killer is free and potentially dangerous. The federal government has provided security and support services while the manhunt continues. Federal law enforcement's investigation into Pooh Shiesty revealed a criminal mastermind who was simultaneously building a legitimate music career and expanding a sophisticated criminal enterprise. Federal agents describe his case as unprecedented, a gang leader who used mainstream success to fund and coordinate criminal activities on a national scale. Federal financial investigators tracked every dollar of Pooh Shiesty's music industry earnings, discovering that significant portions of his legitimate income were being funneled directly into Choppa Gang's criminal operations. Federal money laundering specialists documented purchases of weapons, vehicles, and equipment that were clearly intended for criminal use rather than personal consumption. The federal investigation revealed that Shiesty's signing to Gucci Mane's 1017 Records wasn't just a career milestone. It was a strategic move that provided him with resources, connections, and credibility that enhanced his criminal operations. Federal agents noted that his music industry success made him more dangerous, not less, because it provided cover for his criminal activities. Federal surveillance teams documented Shiesty's continued personal involvement in robberies and violent crimes even after achieving mainstream success. Federal agents were shocked to discover that a rapper earning millions of dollars was still personally participating in street-level crimes, suggesting that his criminal activities weren't motivated by financial need, but by psychological compulsion. The federal wiretaps of Shiesty's communications revealed a sophisticated criminal mind that was constantly planning and coordinating illegal activities. Federal analysts noted that his conversations showed strategic thinking, typically associated with organized crime bosses rather than street gang leaders. He was thinking several moves ahead and planning for long-term criminal success.
Knoxville Metro Police identified two men as Stephen Carwell and Marvin Roper, both of Memphis.
Federal agents were particularly concerned about Shiesty's use of his music platform to recruit new gang members and coordinate criminal activities. Federal cybercrime specialists discovered that his social media accounts and music videos contained coded messages that were used to communicate with gang members and plan operations. The federal investigation showed that Shiesty's introduction of switches, illegal devices that convert semi-automatic weapons to full auto, represented a significant escalation in Choppa Gang's capabilities. Federal ATF agents noted that these modifications are typically associated with international arms trafficking and represent a serious threat to public safety. Federal surveillance revealed that Shiesty was using his music industry connections to expand Choppa Gang's operations into new territories and markets. Federal agents documented meetings with other artists and industry figures that appeared to be focused on criminal rather than musical collaboration. The federal analysis of Shiesty's text messages and communications revealed the true scope of his criminal leadership. Federal prosecutors noted that his messages showed him giving direct orders for violent crimes, coordinating drug trafficking operations, and planning retaliation against rivals. This wasn't passive involvement. He was actively managing a criminal enterprise. Federal agents were particularly disturbed by evidence that Shiesty was using his wealth and success to corrupt legitimate institutions. Federal investigations documented attempts to bribe law enforcement officials, intimidate witnesses, and influence court proceedings through his music industry connections and financial resources. The federal case against Shiesty became a priority for multiple agencies because his success was inspiring other gang leaders to pursue similar strategies. Federal intelligence analysts worried that his model of combining legitimate success with criminal enterprise could be replicated by other criminal organizations across the country. Federal prosecutors viewed Shiesty's case as essential to sending a message that success in legitimate industries doesn't provide immunity from criminal prosecution. The resources devoted to his investigation and prosecution reflected the federal government's determination to prove that no one, regardless of fame or wealth, is above the law. The Bay Harbor Islands robbery that ultimately brought down Pooh Shiesty provided federal investigators with the concrete evidence they needed to prosecute him under federal firearms and robbery statutes. Federal agents described the incident as a gift that allowed them to move forward with charges they had been building for years. Federal surveillance teams had been monitoring Shiesty's activities in Florida as part of their broader investigation into Choppa Gang's interstate operations. Federal agents were already aware of his presence in the Miami area when the robbery occurred, and they were able to respond immediately to gather evidence.
It's like way more turn. Like I ain't really trying to bring nothing back, but
The federal crime scene analysis of the Bay Harbor Islands incident revealed the sophisticated planning and execution that characterized Choppa Gang's operations. Federal agents noted that the robbery wasn't a spontaneous crime of opportunity, but a carefully planned operation that involved advanced surveillance, coordinated timing, and predetermined escape routes. Federal ballistics experts analyzed the weapons used in the robbery, determining that they were part of the same arsenal that federal agents had been tracking through Choppa Gang's weapons trafficking operations. The firearms evidence provided a direct link between the robbery and the broader criminal enterprise that federal prosecutors were building their case around. Federal digital forensics specialists recovered communications and social media evidence that showed Shisti and his associates planning the robbery in advance.
See,
Cyber
that's the thing.
experts noted that
That's the thing about having homies. That's the thing about being famous. Everybody gonna try to cloud up off their homie that, oh yeah, I be with Shiesty, and then they the ones that try to get their little clout on, try to get their views up, go back and forth with the peon dudes, get to pulling out straps, and the police watch all the peon dudes, and then the next thing you know, they're in the video with Pooh Shiesty, and just link it all up. The more and more I hear about this, Pooh Shiesty sound like they talking about Lil Durk. I swear to God, like everything he's saying about Pooh Shiesty and how they watching their social media, and then they got their IMEIs, and they just following them. They knew Big 30 was who he was talking to when they arrested his dumb ass. That's crazy as hell. And then you're gonna smash the phone like, oh no, they're gonna be like, man, you was talking on it, you was texting on it right before we came. So now all of a sudden it's broke, it's busted. Like then y'all do social media, everything. So that's crazy work.
use of encrypted messaging and coded language demonstrated operational security awareness typically associated with sophisticated criminal organizations. The federal investigation revealed that the Bay Harbor Islands robbery was part of a pattern of interstate criminal activity that federal agents had been documenting for months. Federal crime analysts identified similar robberies in Georgia, Alabama, and other states that showed the same planning and execution characteristics as the Florida incident. Federal victim services specialists worked with the two men who were robbed and shot during the incident, documenting their injuries and the long-term impact of the crime. Federal prosecutors used their testimony to demonstrate the human cost of Choppa Gang's activities and justify the severe sentences they were seeking. The federal analysis of surveillance footage from the Bay Harbor Islands incident provided prosecutors with clear visual evidence of Shiesti's involvement in the robbery. Federal video analysts enhanced and analyzed the footage to create a timeline of events that clearly showed the planning and execution of the crime. Federal financial investigators tracked the proceeds from the Bay Harbor Islands robbery, discovering that the stolen money and merchandise were quickly distributed through Choppa Gang's network and used to fund additional criminal activities. The financial evidence provided federal prosecutors with additional charges related to money laundering and criminal enterprise. The federal investigation revealed that the Bay Harbor Islands incident wasn't an isolated crime, but part of a systematic pattern of robberies that Choppa Gang was conducting across multiple states. Federal crime analysts identified over a dozen similar incidents that showed the same planning, execution, and distribution patterns.
You know, like every time I feel like somebody, like, or I'm going through somewhere, I feel like
federal prosecutors used the Bay Harbor Islands case as the foundation for broader charges related to Choppa Gang's criminal enterprise. The incident provided concrete evidence of interstate criminal activity that allowed federal agencies to justify the resources they had devoted to the investigation and prosecution.
Costa Rica with G Adventures means
Stacking it all up and watching everybody. This is exactly how you get a Rico. You start throwing up the gang signs. You start putting everybody in the videos. You start moving around, move about the hood, start going coast to coast, do a video with Lil Durk. You and Lil Durk talking about big boss moves. Now you and Lil Durk looking at Rico type settings and time. Like, what's the point of linking up when y'all both looking like Goofy's doing 1,000 years?
Represents one of the most comprehensive criminal enterprise prosecutions in Memphis history. Federal prosecutors spent over 3 years building a case that would expose the full scope of the gang's operations and ensure that its leadership faced appropriate federal penalties. Federal grand jury proceedings revealed evidence that shocked even experienced prosecutors and federal agents. The scope of Choppa Gang's criminal activities extended far beyond what local law enforcement had documented, involving interstate drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, money laundering, and coordinated violence that federal prosecutors compared to organized crime operations. The federal wiretap evidence presented to the grand jury included thousands of hours of recorded conversations that revealed the inner workings of Choppa Gang's criminal enterprise. Federal prosecutors noted that the recordings showed a level of organization and strategic planning that was unprecedented in their experience with street gangs. Federal prosecutors highlighted specific text messages and communications that showed Pooh Shiesti's direct involvement in planning and coordinating criminal activities. The message stating, "If they got a car and ain't using it, that hoe took. Got a gun and don't want to use it, that hoe took," became a centerpiece of the federal case, demonstrating Shiesti's role as the leader of a violent criminal organization. The federal indictment revealed the sophisticated financial operations that Choppa Gang had developed to launder criminal proceeds and fund their operations. Federal financial crime specialists documented complex networks of bank accounts, business entities, and real estate transactions that were designed to hide the gang's criminal income. Federal weapons trafficking charges in the indictment revealed that Choppa Gang was operating as a major supplier of illegal firearms throughout the southeastern United States. Federal ATF agents documented sales of assault rifles, handguns, and illegal modifications to criminal organizations in multiple states. The federal drug trafficking charges revealed that Choppa Gang was moving wholesale quantities of narcotics through networks that extended from Memphis to major cities throughout the region. Federal DEA agents estimated that the gang was generating millions of dollars in drug revenue annually. Federal conspiracy charges in the indictment demonstrated that Choppa Gang operated as a continuing criminal enterprise with defined leadership, territories, and operational procedures. Federal prosecutors argued that the gang met all the legal requirements for prosecution under federal.
I ain't gonna lie, man. California gangs do not operate like this. So I think that is very hard to get LA gangs like this. Like the way they talking about leadership and how they be training military and how they be having to watch trap spots in LA. Nah, it's too many people doing their own thing in the same hood. That's why they got different cliques in the hood, because people be beefing inside the hood and can't get along together. That's why I think it ain't been hella Rico, because they know we like Wild West. Somebody be Billy the Kid this week, and then we got a Wyatt Earp 2 more years later where a 12-year-old turned 14 and just start popping niggas. You know what I mean? Or just got big enough to where he started knocking people out, allegedly, just like GTA style. So LA would never, it's gonna be very, very hard to get LA gangs to be Rico, like how they saying Pooh Shiesty and Lil Durk, because we don't have common, we don't have, like, we got OG homies, but it's not military, and people ain't setting up a bucket for everybody to make money and have something flowing to where we all get money. Man, these people will tell before, man, these dudes, man, they'll holler at Alex Alonso and No Jumper before y'all even start to make moves. These niggas want to go Hollywood before they even anything. Like, LA will never get Rico like that. Like, we just won't be getting Rico like this with the gang stuff. It's not that structured, believe me.
Organized crime statutes. The federal indictment included charges related to witness intimidation and obstruction of justice, revealing that Choppa Gang had systematically attempted to interfere with law enforcement investigations. Federal prosecutors documented threats against witnesses, attempts to bribe officials, and efforts to destroy evidence. Federal prosecutors noted that the indictment represented only a portion of the criminal activities that federal agents had documented during their investigation. The charges were selected to ensure successful prosecution while sending a clear message about the consequences of operating a criminal enterprise. The federal indictment's impact extended beyond Choppa Gang to other criminal organizations throughout the region. Federal intelligence analysts noted that the comprehensive nature of the charges and the resources devoted to the investigation sent a clear message that federal law enforcement was prepared to treat street gangs as serious threats to national security. Federal victim services specialists worked with dozens of victims whose cases were included in the indictment, providing support and protection during the prosecution process. The federal government's commitment to victim services reflected the comprehensive approach being taken to address the impact of Choppa Gang's criminal activities. Federal prosecutors developed a comprehensive strategy designed not just to convict individual Choppa Gang members, but to completely dismantle the criminal organization and prevent its reconstitution. The prosecution approach reflected lessons learned from decades of federal experience with organized crime and gang prosecutions. The federal prosecution team included specialists in organized crime, gang violence, financial crimes, and weapons trafficking, reflecting the complex nature of the charges against Choppa. Federal prosecutors noted that the case required expertise typically reserved for major organized crime prosecutions. Federal prosecutors' decision to charge Pooh Shiesty and other gang leaders under federal organized crime statutes was based on extensive analysis of gang structure and operations. Federal legal experts noted that Choppa Gang met all the criteria for prosecution as a continuing criminal enterprise, including ongoing criminal activity, defined leadership, and systematic operations. The federal plea bargaining strategy was designed to encourage cooperation from lower-level gang members while ensuring that leadership faced appropriate penalties. Federal prosecutors offered reduced sentences to gang members who provided information about the organization's operations and leadership. Federal prosecutors' use of wiretap evidence required extensive legal preparation to ensure that the recordings would be admissible in court. Federal legal experts noted that the quality and quantity of the wiretap evidence made Choppa Gang one of the strongest organized crime cases they had seen. The federal sentencing strategy was designed to ensure that gang leaders received penalties that would prevent them from resuming criminal activities upon release. Federal prosecutors sought sentences that would keep key gang members in federal prison for decades, effectively ending their criminal careers. Federal prosecutors coordinated with state and local authorities to ensure that gang members who weren't included in federal charges still faced appropriate prosecution. The comprehensive approach was designed to prevent any gang members from escaping consequences for their criminal activities. The federal prosecution's focus on financial crimes was designed to strip Choppa Gang of the resources needed to continue operations. Federal prosecutors sought forfeiture of all assets connected to the gang's criminal activities, including real estate, vehicles, and financial accounts. Federal prosecutors' emphasis on victim impact was designed to demonstrate the human cost of Choppa Gang's activities and justify the severe sentences being sought. Federal victim services specialists worked to ensure that victims' voices were heard throughout the prosecution process. The federal prosecution strategy included extensive media and community outreach designed to educate the public about the dangers of gang involvement and the consequences of criminal activity. Federal prosecutors viewed the case as an opportunity to send a broader message about law enforcement's commitment to public safety. The federal prosecution of Choppa Gang has had far-reaching impacts on Memphis's criminal landscape, but federal law enforcement officials warn that the threat posed by the gang's remaining members and imitators continues to evolve. Federal agencies maintain active investigations into gang activities throughout the region. Federal crime statistics show a significant reduction in violent crime in areas where Choppa Gang previously operated, demonstrating the effectiveness of the federal prosecution strategy. Federal analysts note that the removal of key gang leaders has disrupted criminal networks throughout Memphis and surrounding areas. Federal investigations' impact on other criminal organizations has been substantial, with federal agents noting increased cooperation from informants and witnesses who previously feared retaliation from gang members. The successful prosecution has demonstrated that federal law enforcement can protect those who cooperate with investigations. Federal intelligence analysts continue to monitor communications and activities of remaining Choppa Gang associates, noting attempts to reconstitute the organization under new leadership. Federal agents warn that the gang's criminal infrastructure remains partially intact and could be reactivated by ambitious criminals. The federal prosecution's impact on Memphis's music scene has been complex, with some artists distancing themselves from gang associations while others continue to glorify criminal activity. Federal agents continue to monitor music industry connections that may be facilitating criminal activities. Federal financial investigations continue to track assets and money laundering networks that were established during Choppa Gang's operation. Federal prosecutors note that dismantling the gang's financial infrastructure is essential to preventing its reconstitution. The federal case has become a model for gang prosecutions throughout the country, with federal prosecutors from other districts studying the investigation and prosecution strategies used against Choppa Gang. Federal training programs now include case studies based on the Choppa Gang investigation, Federal victim services programs continue to provide support for individuals and communities affected by Choppa Gang's activities. Federal officials note that the long-term impact of gang violence extends far beyond the immediate victims and requires ongoing intervention and support. Federal law enforcement agencies have increased their presence and activities in Memphis following the Choppa Gang prosecution, recognizing that the city's criminal landscape remains volatile and dangerous. Federal agents continue to work with local authorities to prevent the emergence of new criminal organizations. The federal government's investment in the Choppa Gang prosecution reflects a broader strategy of treating gang violence as a national security issue that requires federal resources and expertise. Federal officials note that the success of the prosecution justifies continued federal involvement in local gang investigations. The federal prosecution of Choppa Gang represents a watershed moment in law enforcement's approach to gang violence, demonstrating that sophisticated criminal organizations can be dismantled through coordinated federal investigation and prosecution. The case has become a model for federal agencies dealing with similar threats throughout the country. Federal law enforcement officials note that the Choppa Gang case proved that traditional distinctions between street gangs and organized crime are no longer relevant. Modern criminal organizations use technology, legitimate businesses, and celebrity status to enhance their operations in ways that require federal resources and expertise to address effectively. The federal investment in the Choppa Gang prosecution, estimated at over $10 million in investigation and prosecution costs, reflects the government's recognition that gang violence represents a serious threat to national security and public safety. Federal officials argue that the long-term benefits of dismantling such organizations justify the substantial resources required. Federal prosecutors note that the Choppa Gang case has changed how they approach gang investigations, emphasizing the importance of financial crimes, technology, and interstate coordination in building successful cases. The prosecution strategies developed for this case are now being used against criminal organizations throughout the country. The federal government's success in prosecuting Choppa Gang has sent a clear message to other criminal organizations that federal law enforcement has the resources and determination to dismantle even the most sophisticated gang operations. Federal agents report increased cooperation from informants and witnesses who previously feared gang retaliation. For the communities affected by Choppa Gang's activities, the federal prosecution represents both justice and hope for the future. Federal victim services specialists note that the successful prosecution has helped restore faith in the justice system and encourage community cooperation with law enforcement. The story of Choppa Gang serves as a cautionary tale about the ultimate futility of criminal enterprise, regardless of its sophistication or success. Federal prosecutors note that no criminal organization, no matter how well organized or well funded, can ultimately escape federal justice. As federal agents continue to monitor Memphis's criminal landscape, they remain vigilant for signs that new organizations may be attempting to fill the void left by Choppa Gang's dismantling. The federal commitment to preventing the emergence of similar threats remains strong, ensuring that the lessons learned from this case will continue to protect communities throughout the region. What do y'all think about how the feds took down this whole operation? The fact that they had wiretaps, surveillance, and were building this case for years, while Pooh Shiesty was getting famous, shows just how deep federal law enforcement goes when they want somebody. Drop your thoughts in the comments.
Man, what do you mean, man? How far they'll go, man? They was tapping in to Big 30 phone when they pulled up on him to get him for what he in there for now. What do you mean? What do I think? Man, this nigga through. Now here's another part, another angle of Icy, but it's still the same.
That's okay.
They can tell you another way. Like, it's so many different people that got like thousands and thousands of views on it. I'm even thinking about doing a video myself just because of all the views people getting. I stopped doing the small time dudes. Ain't no money in no small views that don't nobody really know. You got to bounce up out of that LA because everybody ain't from LA. The only people that's really crashing it is No Jumper.
This is Pooh Shiesty, The Last Crash. What up, everybody? You're now tuned in to When the Mic Fades. This is the channel where we tell real stories about artists who either passed away or sitting behind bars fighting a case. First off, I gotta say this. We just hit over 500,000 views on the channel, bro. What? That's crazy. Real talk. I appreciate every single one of y'all that's been watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and shit. All that. Appreciate it. We just hit over 6,000 subscribers too.
Oh yeah, you
On
do
10
your thing.
videos in.
And now it's time to get to that
Yeah, shout out to
10,000
you.
mark.
Get to that 10,000.
It's the one right here, man. This is a big one, man, because this is actually the first video I'm covering outside of California. You already know I've been locked in with the West Coast, man. Them my guys out there. But I had to switch it up real quick, man. But I ain't gonna lie, this one hit a little different for me because Pooh Shiesty is definitely one of my favorite artists. I literally waited 5 years for this dude to get out of jail to drop an album, and he just did this. I had a couple of stories, man. And I hate I even had to do this video, man, because I fucks with Gucci too, man. But at the same time, this is exactly why this channel exists, to tell the real story, whether we like it or not. So if you got any artists, any cities, any stories that you want me to cover, drop them in the comments. I'm watching all that, man. I ain't gonna lie. I hope about to change for me too real soon, man. My son gonna be here in 2 weeks. So I had to drop this one before he get here, man. Maybe one more before he get here. He's supposed to be here on the 7th of next month. I really appreciate all the support for real. Now let's get back to the story. Free Pooh Shiesty first and foremost. This is When the Mic Fades, episode 10. Pooh Shiesty, The Last Crash.
Robbery and kidnapping of rapper Gucci Mane have been arrested. Officials say the alleged ringleader behind the attack was rapper Pooh Shiesty. Our Preseda Olguin has been on top of this story and has the latest. Aside from learning that the ninth and final suspect has been arrested, we've been able to obtain video which shows the FBI at Pooh Shiesty's home the day he was arrested. Take a look at that video. This happened in Memphis. Federal authorities say Shiesty was the ringleader behind the attack on Gucci Mane here in Dallas. That incident happened back in January at a music studio located off Dallas Parkway. The DOJ says Gucci Mane and 2 others were allegedly kidnapped and robbed at gunpoint. They say 9 people were involved, including Pooh Shiesty's father and Big 30. For background, Pooh Shiesty signed on to Gucci Mane's record label back in 2020. And according to the DOJ, Pooh Shiesty is the one who set up the meeting to discuss his recording contract.
As alleged, Williams Jr. produced an AK-style pistol and forced one of the victims to sign a release from the recording contract at gunpoint. The remaining conspirators displayed firearms and robbed the other victims of Rolex watches, jewelry, cash, and other high-value items.
Pooh Shiesty was released from federal prison in October and was placed on home confinement for a previous conviction, meaning that it's likely he was wearing an ankle monitor at.
Why in the hell would you be showing the Rolex watch that y'all stole from the people there with Gucci? Like, what would possess you to post this on Instagram? That's just stupid.
The time of the crime. Officials say all 9 suspects will be transported here to North Texas.
I'm too stuck in my way. Damn. Shit. Fuck. Like that shit, boy. Come Mr. Shystyle, move, they can't wait to see. Activate those streets when shit go down, they quick to see me. Latrell Donnell Williams Jr. was born on November 8, 1999 in South Memphis, Tennessee, and raised in Cane Creek Apartments, a neighborhood where survival came before everything else. Cane Creek wasn't just where he lived, it was a foundation of everything around him. A place filled with poverty, violence, and constant pressure, where young kids were exposed to the streets early and forced to grow up faster than they should. Unlike a lot of kids in that environment, Latrell had both of his parents in the house. But the biggest influence of his life was his father, a man known across Memphis as Mob Boss. His father wasn't just some random street figure. He had real motion in the city, known for his involvement in the streets and running mob-ties records, trying to build something through music while still being deeply connected to the street life. To a young Latrell, this wasn't just his dad. This was somebody he looked up to like a boss, like an example of power. And he watched everything, how he moved, how people respected him, and how the streets worked. But his father's story wasn't just reputation, it was documented. Federal court records from the Western District of Tennessee showed that in a case filed April 15, 2009, Latrell Williams Sr. pleaded guilty to a federal drug conspiracy and distribution charges.
As part of that case, he entered in a cooperation agreement with the government, agreeing to provide information and assistance in exchange for a potential reduction in his sentence. That's not street rumors, that's public record. So while the street saw mob boss one way, the paperwork told another story. And that duality, street image versus reality, will become something that quietly followed Luntrell as he grew up, even if he didn't fully understand it yet. At the same time, Luntrell was just a kid trying to figure out life. His mother played the opposite role of his father, more nurturing, more grounded, trying to keep him focused. His nickname, Mr. Pooh, came from his older brother, Torrance Henderson, also known as T to P. And when his brother passed away, that loss stuck with him in a way that never really healed. The pain started to change him early, and as he got older, the name evolved. People added Shiesty, Memphis slang for someone cold, calculated, moving without hesitation. That name fit the environment he was also growing into. As a kid, Lantrell actually had different dreams. He went to Hamilton Middle School and played basketball, joining a team in the sixth grade thinking he might have a future in sports, but that didn't last. His behavior kept getting him kicked out of school, fighting, acting out, not staying focused. Eventually, he stopped showing up to practice altogether, and that opportunity was gone. By the time he was 11 years old, he was already in and out of juvenile detention, even wearing an ankle monitor.
He got
That slowed him down. If anything, it pushed him deeper into the lifestyle around him. The street started to become his reality, robbing, fighting, finessing, doing whatever it took to survive and earn respect. By high school, his reputation was already building. He attended Central High School where he linked up with other kids from his neighborhood and formed what would become Chopper Gang. This wasn't just music at first, it was a clique, a group rooted in Cane Creek apartments, surrounded by different gang influences, including Vice Lords and Great Street Crips. This the lad who this shit started. I be who there right there.
New Aveeno baby face cream strengthens skin.
Man, it's just like Young Thug, Lil Durk. They show they growing up. They got all their partners waving all them guns, and ever since they was nobody, they've been watching the whole time.
I promise about none day. He could light on a lot. You know, he put it, but you know how we start. No, he drops. They know that. Yeah, they know this. You know. I ain't got a prop to crop out here. We slug and shit. Nigga ain't gonna die. Nigga ain't gonna die. And I got one nigga. That shit gonna. Them blanks. They gonna die. Them blanks. Just say, I don't need 2-3, man. I don't need 2-3. Niggas. Yeah, my nigga, put this on the camera. Let's leave my nigga 2-3, man. I shit rapping. Blocks on blocks, you hear me? Yeah, quit playing. Blocks on choppers on top. This shit custom bad. This shit regular. We ain't no regular ass young nigga. Yeah, hear me? You can't see your state, you know this. So I'm talking about how long? I'm talking about.
Affiliation was less about national ties and more about blocks and who you came up with. Some people around him weren't just talking street life, they were actually living it fully. People like Chopper Gang Hank and Chopper Watt were already catching serious charges, including attempted murder, before music even became the real focus. This was the environment Lantrell was in every day, and it shaped how he thought, how he moved, and what he valued. Around 16 or 17 years old, his family made a move to Pflugerville, Texas, trying to get him out of Memphis and give him a different path. For about a year and a half, he experienced a completely different environment, quieter, slower, not driven by the same pressure as South Memphis. But that wasn't who he was. Memphis was still in his blood. Eventually, they moved back, and when they did, he locked in just enough to graduate, finishing school through summer classes and online work. But once school was over, there was nothing holding him back anymore, and he went right back into the life he knew, reconnecting with the same people and fully stepping into the street. At the same time, something else was starting to build. Chopper Gang began putting money together for studio time, not as a serious career move at first, but just as an extension of what they were already doing. They built a YouTube channel, started uploading music, and slowly the city started paying attention. Pusha's first real viral moment came from a song called Breaking News, where his verse got clipped and spread across Memphis, turning it into a local anthem almost overnight.
clipping not allowed. You gotta have a 50, 30 kill only reason I can't let you fuck it up. 100 shots up in the car, truck, better watch where you book. I'm all secure. Nigga, we hungry, dangerous, and ain't no time enough. Till I die, gonna take that to the grave with us. He want grave enough.
Man, songs like Hell Night, Shiesty Summer, and Chopper Talk started gaining traction, and his name began ringing outside of just his neighborhood. And at the same time, he was building chemistry with his best friend, Rodney White Jr., known as Big 30, who he met in an alternative school. Big 30's connection to King Creek was through his cousin, who brought him into that same circle. Together, they started forming a sound and identity that felt real to the city. Everything changed once labels started paying attention. At that time, Memphis rap was dominated by two camps: Paper Rock Empire, led by Young Dolph, and Cocaine Music Group, led by Yo Gotti. Those weren't just labels, they represented two sides of the city, two power structures, and a lot of built-up tension. Pooh Shiesty didn't want to walk into Memphis rap already tied to one side's politics. His vision was for Choppa Gang to become its own movement, its own label, its own lane, so people wouldn't have to choose only between PRE and CMG. Around that same time, his best friend Big 30 signed first with Yo Gotti CMG, which made the movement even bigger. Not long after that, Gucci Mane reached out to Pooh Shiesty directly in the DMs, asking him if he was signed, and Pooh Shiesty told him he was still independent. Gucci saw the potential and immediately moved fast, signing him to 1017.
10-17 ball. Hit up in the dog.
Decision mattered because Gucci Mane and Yo Gotti had already been beefing for years, with long-running tensions and outside issues added to it. So now you had two best friends from the same world together, getting pulled in two different sides of the industry. Big 30 was with CMG, Pooh Shiesty was with 1017. And even though Pooh Shiesty had avoided choosing between two Memphis camps, he still ended up stepping into a bigger war that was already there. Once Gucci Mane reached out and signed Pooh Shiesty for 1017, everything changed fast. This wasn't just a rapper getting a deal. This was Gucci putting him into a real machine and introducing him as part of the new wave under So Icy Gang, alongside Fujiano and the cousin Big Scar. Gucci wasn't easing him in slowly either. He put him right in the middle of the rollout and instantly gave Pooh Shiesty a bigger stage than he ever had before. The city already knew him, but now the industry knew him too. He went from being a name in Memphis with local momentum to being attached to one of the biggest street rap brands in the South. Videos was dropping, the image was stronger than ever, the budget looked different, and the spotlight was getting bigger every week. At the same time his name was growing, the tension back home was growing too. A lot of that centered around the issues between Choppa Gang and EBG out of North Memphis. Then came Back in Blood with Lil Durk, and that song changed everything. To the average listener, it was just a hard song with a crazy hook. But in Memphis, people heard something deeper. The streets connected it directly to the ongoing problem. When EBG members, especially EBG E Jizza, felt like the song was aimed at them and that it was making Pooh Shiesty look bigger in the streets than what they really believed really happened.
I took it as a diss, but it just, the reason what made me respond because it was just false as hell. Like, it just was a whole bunch of make believe and exaggerated situations.
Yeah, they just saying that Pooh Shiesty, he made a Back in Blood song just based on a house lick. Y'all think the whole world screaming the lyrics like this nigga really bust somebody down and they got to get it back in blood. This nigga talking about busting a nigga window, stealing some shit, and the whole world took it like Pooh Shiesty some straight up.
It made me a little mad, but like it was more like you trying to glorify some lame ass shit type shit. Like you trying to glorify the shit that you ain't even doing. So this is all it was. Like I had to respond to the truth behind the situation.
My heart is on my shoulder, Mr. Pooh, you is a hoe. Tell you got the 30 shots and now you rapping, that's your bro. This is exactly what we do it for right here.
they pushed back and basically said that he was exaggerating the story, making it seem like he took something directly from them, when really, in their version, it was more like guns had been stolen during the house play. But by that point, it almost didn't even matter what they said, because Pooh Shiesty was too hot, his fame was exploding, the record was everywhere, and his version became the one the world believed. That's when the beef really spilled into music. EBG responded with diss records, social media got ugly, lives, posts, comments, sneak disses, all of it. EBG Jizzle made a song Back in Blood remix saying what really happened, but YouTube kept taking it down due to copyright strikes. EBG Jizzle would take it a step further, dissing Pooh Shiesty's dead brother, P to P, who died of brain cancer, alleging that he was a snitch before he died. Then a couple weeks later, EBG Jizzle got shot, and once that happened, the internet ran with the story. Rumors spread that he was paralyzed, and Choppa Gang fed into it, laughing on live and clowning him while he was laying down. But Jizzle came back and responded with paralyzed, showing that he could still move and making it clear that he wasn't finished.
I thought that was a girl.
Pushing over her. The new bitch, all she wanted fuck the other side. And this bitch, she running your brother testify. You say you shot it, just all the bitch, you know you love.
This wasn't just two sides throwing records back and forth. It was turning into real humiliation, real disrespect, and real Memphis street tension playing out in public. Eventually, the beef slowed down on wax, but it didn't really end. It just moved further into the streets where things were already more dangerous and a lot less predictable. While all that was happening, Pooh Shiesty's career kept going up, and this is where the run got crazy. After Back in Blood, he started dropping big records under Gucci's 1017 umbrella. Neighbors with Big 30, Monday to Sunday with Lil Baby and Big 30, Twerk Something, Main Slime Remix with Moneybag Yo, Guard Up, Ugly with Gucci Man, and the numbers were stupid. Millions and millions of views, big records, big features, big momentum. Then Shiesty season dropped and pushed him even higher. At that point, he wasn't just one hot rapper from Memphis anymore. He was becoming one of the hottest new artists in rap, period. The industry was locked in, the fans were locked in, and it looked like he was building towards something even bigger. But right as everything was going up, the songs, the features, the views, the fame, real life was moving just as fast in the background. And before he could really sit in that success, everything was about to shift in Florida. By the time Pooh Shiesty's name was exploding, the streets were still moving with him. And on October 9th, 2020, that lifestyle followed him all the way to Bay Harbor Island, Florida. According to details from the reports and court paperwork, the whole situation started as a meetup for marijuana and a pair of high-end sneakers. Pooh Shiesty, along with Bobby Brown and Jaden DeRosso, pulled up to a Bay Harbor Islands hotel and parking lot area in multiple luxury vehicles, including a bright green McLaren and a Maybach. On the surface, it looked like a regular street transaction, but the second everyone got out and linked up, the deal went left. The surveillance footage made the situation even crazier because it showed just how fast everything happened. The vehicles pulled in, the men met up, and then moments later, the shooting started. One man in a white t-shirt was seen with a handgun, and another man in a black sweatshirt was seen with a longer gun. Shots were fired in broad daylight, right there in the parking lot. When it was over, two men had been hit, both of them survived, but the scene was already in chaos. Then, according to reports, the group sped away from the scene in the same vehicles they arrived in, taking with them the marijuana and the sneakers without paying. That's what made the whole thing bigger than just a shootout. In the eyes of the investigators, this wasn't just violence during a bad deal. This was a robbery. And what made it even worse was how bold it looked. This wasn't happening tucked away in some hidden alley or in some trap spot. This happened in the open, in the middle of the day, with surveillance cameras catching the moment. Reporters said the shooting happened near Bay Harbor Island's police and town hall, which made the whole thing even more reckless. The footage showed the men retreating back into the cars, the McLaren and the Maybach, peeling off, and one of the injured men struggling back toward another vehicle. From anybody watching that footage later, it didn't look like confusion. It looked like street play that turned violent in seconds. At first, though, Pooh Shiesty got away. He didn't get locked up. He didn't stay down there in Florida. He kept moving. That was important because it wasn't just one of those stories where the artist came the same day and everything stopped. He left the scene, left the state, and kept living life, and the case was still building in the background. But the robbery did just disappear. Investigators were gathering footage, matching vehicles, following social media, and piecing together who was there and what happened. The reports even mentioned photos being posted online that showed him with cash and assault-style type rifles being looked at as part of the bigger picture. So while the public was seeing the music blow up, there was already a dark cloud hanging over him in Florida. And that's what makes this part of the story so important, because while Back in Blood was turning him into a star, while millions of people were just getting introduced to Pooh Shiesty, this robbery was already sitting there in the background waiting to catch up. A deal for weed and designer sneaks turned into gunfire and 2 men injured, a McLaren speeding off, and a robbery case that wasn't going away. The rise was still happening, but now the first real crack had already formed. Even after the Bay Harbor robbery, Pooh Shiesty was still outside, still moving, still performing. And by Memorial Day weekend in 2021, he was in Miami, booked to perform at King of Diamond, most known strip clubs in the city. The night was supposed to be just another show, another bag, another performance. But just like before, everything turned in seconds. According to reports, the situation started after his performance. Around 4 a.m., while he was being escorted out by security, somewhere in the middle of the crowd, money allegedly fell out of his pocket. That's when everything shifted. People in the crowd started scrambling, trying to grab the cash, turning the exit into chaos. What was supposed to be a controlled walkout turned into a situation where Shiesty felt like people were taking from him. Instead of leaving it alone, he turned back. Reports say he got upset and went back toward the stage area, trying to figure out who grabbed his money. That's when security stepped in. A guard noticed he had a gun in his waistband and tried to stop the situation from escalating. The guard reportedly told him to put the weapon away and even reached toward his hand to keep him from pulling it out. Hey, yo. But it was already too late. Shiesty pulled a gun and fired a shot. The bullet hit the security guard in the ankle. The guard survived, but the situation instantly turned from chaos to a full-blown shooting.
Hey, Jack, Pooh Shiesty.
He said they checked Pooh Shiesty.
Pooh Shiesty, let it out there. Jack his bitch ass in this bitch.
Inside a packed club, one shot was all it took to shut everything down. And just like the Bay Harbor situation, he didn't stay. According to police, he left the club with his entourage in the Cadillac Escalade before officers even arrived. By the time law enforcement got there, he was already gone. This time, the story didn't stay quiet. Word spread fast, videos started circulating, reports started dropping, and now there was multiple incidents tied to his name in Florida. There were even rumors online saying somebody took around $40,000 from him that night, but he denied that publicly, saying nothing was taken. Still, according to the investigators, money was at the center of the entire situation. That's what triggered everything. Now there was a pattern starting to show. First, a robbery tied to a shootout in Bay Harbor. Then months later, another situation involving money, another gun, and another shooting. This time inside a club in front of witnesses. Two separate incidents, same energy, same escalation. And while the music was still going crazy, the pressure was building because now it wasn't just one situation hanging over his head, it was two. By the time everything finally caught up to Pooh Shiesty, it wasn't street talk anymore. It was federal. What started back on October 9th, 2020 in Bay Harbor Islands turned into a case that would change everything. According to prosecutors, Shiesty pulled up to the hotel in a rented lime green McLaren to buy marijuana, codeine, and a pair of high-end sneakers. But during the exchange, the situation flipped. After accepting the items and looking at the sneakers, he allegedly pulled out a Draco and fired it, hitting one of the men before taking off. And that's where everything went wrong. Because during the escape, Louis Vuitton bags for $40,000 in cash fell out of the car. That's one mistake gave investigators real evidence tied directly to the scene. But it got even crazier. The feds didn't just stop at the scene, they went to social media. Days before the shooting, Shiesty had been posting money on Instagram, flexing stacks like rappers do. Investigators were able to match the serial numbers on one of the recovered $100 bills from the dropped bag to a bill he had shown on Instagram. Same exact bill. That's how tight the case was. Now it wasn't just a story, it was proof connecting him directly to the money left behind from a shooting. Prosecutors built it up as a robbery turned violent, stacking charges like conspiracy, robbery, and firearms tied to a violent crime. His defense tried to fight it, arguing he was just there to buy a small amount of codeine for personal use, and that it made no sense for someone with money, cars, and status to risk everything over something that small. But the government wasn't going for that.
Yeah.
They painted it as a planned situation that went left. With the evidence they had, the pressure got real. Facing serious federal time, Shiesty made the move to take a plea deal, pleading guilty to a single count of firearm conspiracy instead of risking a much longer sentence at trial. In April 2022, the judge handed it down, 5 years and 3 months in federal prison. He got credit for time served and good behavior. There was a chance to come home early, but the reality was still one of the hottest rappers in the game at the time went from charting records to sitting in a federal cell. And when you really look back at it, everything traces back to that one moment. A deal that turned into a shooting, a getaway that turned sloppy, and a bag of $40,000 that fell out of a car that led to the feds. Prison slowed everything down for Pooh Shiesty. No label presence, no 1017 being shouted out. Just him and the feds doing 5 years, watching the world move without him. And instead of going quiet, he started talking back through the jail phone recordings, dropping Federal Contraband and Federal Contraband 2. My mindset got different. I'm in prison before I'm sentenced. You could hear it. He wasn't the same no more. No Gucci Man mentions, no label loyalty. His focus shifted. Jigga my motivation. That's the only nigga I see. While he was locked up, his name wasn't fading either. It was getting bigger. The industry was behind him. Lil Durk, Young Thug, G Herbo, and even Gucci Man himself. Everybody posted free Pooh Shiesty. His music kept coming, and Shiesty season kept running numbers, going double platinum while he sat in the cell. That success came with the reality he couldn't ignore, because while his music was growing, so was the business behind it. He was still signed, still locked into a deal with Gucci Man, and while he was locked up, most of that money was still flowing through the label. So now he's sitting there watching his career expand without control over it. And at the same time, he was dealing with something way deeper than music. Big Scar. On Bad Times with Scar before he died. Couldn't even say I love him. That loss hit different. After Big Scar died of an alleged overdose, rumors spread that Gucci Man didn't want to offer help paying for funeral costs, and he also wanted his 1017 chain back after he saw Big Scar's family wearing it at the funeral. And with all the noise around the funeral, the rumors, and everything tied to it, it only added fuel to the fire and how he was already feeling it. If I sit back and watch drugs kill you, I failed as a brother. Now it ain't just about doing time, it's about grief, pressure, and business all colliding at once. And sitting in that cell, watching everything play out, the music, the money, the loyalty, one thing started to become clear to him. He wasn't trying to beat the system anymore. He was trying to get his freedom back in every way possible. Prison doors don't open fast, they drag, metal on metal, echoing through a place that took years from you before it finally gives you something back, freedom.
Memphis rapper Pooh Shiesty is no longer in federal custody, according to his attorney. Pooh Shiesty, whose real name is Lontrell Williams, was sentenced to 5 years, 3 months in prison in a Miami federal court back in April of 2022 after he pled guilty to gun and drug charges. His attorney, Bradford Cohen, says he was released yesterday after a combination of time served and Crohn's is not going to stop, so you can't.
That lady looked like she been doing Memphis news for 50 years straight. She had a straight drive-through gap in her teeth. She looked like she been past the grave 3-4 times, resuscitated. That lady was old.
Also says Pooh Shiesty is looking forward to getting back to the studio and making music again.
But for Pooh Shiesty, that moment wasn't just about walking out. It was about stepping back into a world that didn't stop him. The streets kept moving, the industry kept evolving, his name kept growing. Without him being there to control it. And the second he touched down, it felt like everything snapped back at once. Phones out, cameras recording, people yelling his name. But this wasn't industry love, this was his people.
An undisclosed location. We in this road. We all by ourselves, family day.
My sheet. Let's go.
He out now, baby.
Stop playing with me.
He out now, baby. He coming. He coming.
Come on.
Hey, what they say?
Just on his neck.
Uh,
That boy just put a bank on his neck.
he can be a boy.
The gang was outside waiting. Big 30 right there, Kate Corbin, the same ones that held him down while he was gone. No fake handshakes, no industry hugs, the real ones. You could see it in the videos. The energy wasn't serious. It was relief, loyalty. You made it back because not everybody do. And that hit different because of everything he had just been through. The isolation, the losses, the time. That wasn't just a rapper coming home. That was somebody who was surviving something. So when he got out, there was no easing back in. No, let me warm up. The spotlight was already on him, waiting. And instead of slowing it down, he leaned into it heavy. The visuals started hitting the internet almost instantly. Pooh Shiesty, fresh out, surrounded by money, stacks everywhere, new jewelry, new chain, new watches. Car lined up like he never left.
Oh
It
God.
wasn't just a show.
Let's go.
Wasn't coming back to rebuild. He was coming back to remind people who he was. Walked out of jail, I saw 6 forms. I just got out the bunk bed. From prison bunk bed straight to foreign cars. No in between, no adjustment period. Just straight back into the light. But there's something deeper in that moment too. Because when you go from having nothing to having everything again overnight, it just don't feel like success. It feel like pressure. And he knew that. Nigga, I came from shit. The whole world been waiting on it. And that's the reality of coming home with your name still hot. Everybody watching, waiting to see if you still got it, waiting to see if prisons changed you, waiting to see if you fell off or leveled up. And Pooh Shiesty didn't wait to answer that question. He dropped FDO.
Yeah, FBO out now. Check it out, man. Go get that, man. 2026. This shit getting way more hectic, man. I'm unstoppable, Mr. Unstoppable, Mr. Slam Mouth, Mr. Go Too Far. You know what the fuck going on. Everything rose gold. You know what I'm saying? Everything rose gold. Can't be beat, man. We back and we better. We ready to hit the ground running. The streets, they chose me. Stepping on shit my lane, nigga. I ain't choose the rap, they chose me. My name here too much weight. Typing phones, I got one phone, got your got it too near Drake, nigga. FDO, FPL, first day out, bitch. Fuck, nigga walked out the jail. I saw 6 phone. I just got out the bunk bed, 3 million cash. Can't fit in my hand, then sit something on my head. They come together, man. I told y'all this when we was it, man. We coming to the video shoot. One scene out the way. We heard, man. Double XL, shiesty. Brr. Let me see if y'all know money, man. I want y'all to guess how many hundred these is. Guess how much money this is.
I'll say about a good 50.
Which?
50K.
Getting cold. Quarter. You getting super cold. I think you getting close. A million. What did you went too far? 7. I can't. The whole world been waiting on me. Took that knife all the way to R&D, gave it to my little homie. Nigga, fortunately, it had to happen, but it happened, bro. It is what it is. So you got to get this out the way early. You know what I'm saying? It could have been too late for me if I wouldn't ever came out and played it right. So take advantage of that too. You know what I'm saying? So that stuck with me.
That line hit different because it wasn't just rap, it was reality. While he was sitting in a cell, his brand was still growing. His music was still moving. His name was still holding weight. So now that he was out, he stepped into momentum that never stopped. And that wasn't just a song, that was a statement. The video hit and took off immediately. Millions of views, clips everywhere, social media flooded. It wasn't just he's back, it was he never left. But coming home ain't just about the money and the music. It's about what changed and what didn't. Because while everything looked the same on the outside, besides him getting away, internally he wasn't the same person. Prison don't just take the time; it shifts your patience, your trust, the way you move. You don't come out like you did before. You come out watching, moving different, calculating more, and you can hear it in his voice now. More controlled, more aware. Still aggressive, but sharper. And then that's the part nobody really talks about. The part that don't show up in the jury, the cards, or the video, the losses. Because everything he came back to wasn't exactly how he left. People missing, energy
That
different,
nigga wanted this
situations unresolved. So while the outside looked like a celebration,
about the 10,
wait,
17 chains on
still things he carried from the inside of those walls. Still things he didn't get to fix before he got out. And that's what makes that moment bigger than just a comeback. This isn't just a rapper dropping a new video. This is somebody stepping back to a life that already moved forward without him, trying to catch up without losing control again. Because now he got something to protect. Not just his career, but his freedom. And that's the real question moving forward. Not if Pooh Shiesty still got the music, not if he can still go viral, not if he can still pull the numbers, but if he can move different this time in a life that don't give second chances easily, because the first time cost him 5 years and 3 months. By January 2026, this wasn't the story of a rapper fresh home trying to rebuild. According to the federal complaint, this was the moment everything turned again. And this time, it didn't happen in Miami. It didn't happen in Memphis. It happened in Dallas, Texas, inside a studio in broad daylight with paperwork, guns, surveillance footage, fingerprints, phone records, rental cards, Instagram accounts, simple monitor, all tying the story together. The complaint says the whole thing is centered around Latrell Williams Jr., known as Pooh Shiesty, who was signed to RD's Roger Davis, aka Gucci Man's 1017 label since around 2021, and was upset with the terms of his contract. So the meeting got arranged in Dallas, supposedly to handle business. The victims identified in paperwork only by initials RD, MM, and BP flew into Dallas on January the 10th, 2026 around 1 p.m., along with RD's head of security, CW, and another security officer, TD. Investigators say he wanted out, not later, not after lawyers, right then. They were there for a scheduled meeting between RD and Williams Jr. at a recording studio on Dallas Parkway, but the complaint says the studio meeting was just the surface. Underneath, it was something else already moving. According to investigators, while the victims were heading to Dallas, Williams Jr. and his father, Lontrell Williams Sr., were already on the ground, and they weren't alone. The complaint names a whole group. Rodney White Jr., identified in the affidavit as rapper Big 30, plus DeMarcus Glover, Demarion Gibson, Corday Johnson, Terrence Rogers, Darius Waters, and Darian McDaniel. Federal agents say those men, along with Williams Jr. and Williams Sr., knowingly combined and agreed together to commit kidnapping. The affidavit says the travel records, phone.
You know what kind of burnt out you gotta be to do a crime with your dad? Like who gonna be home for mama and the kids? Like you dumb as hell.
Electronic monitoring, hotel records, bus records, fingerprints, and social media all point to the group moving together from Memphis to Dallas before the offense and then back after it was all over. Some of them, according to the complaint, traveled in a black Dodge Charger Hellcat and a black Dodge Ram. Investigators say the Charger was tied to Wright's father, and license plate reader scan shows it in Texas during the key time period. The white Buick Enclave that moved with them was rented from Hertz by Williams Sr. on December 29, 2025, and had not yet been returned. The record showed it was still in his name when the offense went down. The complaint lays out the day almost minute by minute. Around 1:50 p.m., Williams Sr. was allegedly caught on surveillance at a Staples in Frisco, Texas, near 3333 Preston Road. He parked the rented Buick Enclave outside, went inside, and walked to the copy printer. The receipt shows a transaction around 1:59 p.m. Investigators believe that stop mattered because they say Williams Sr. and Williams Jr. were getting the contract terminated paperwork printed there. The same paperwork that would later be shoved in front of Gucci Mane's face inside of the studio. From there, the digital trail tightened. The complaint says the group phone, vehicle data, and electronic monitoring bracelet that was on Pooh Shiesty all placed them in the area around Windor Tower and later near the studio. That ankle monitor mattered a lot because according to the affidavit, Williams Jr. was still serving a 63-month sentence out of the Southern District of Florida and had only been approved for home detention on or about October 31st, 2025. He was required to wear an electronic monitor and not possess deadly weapons or knowingly be around others with them. The complaint says the data from that monitor showed him near the offense location on January the 10th, 2026. By about 1:45 p.m., the victims and security arrived at the studio. But when they got there, the studio owned by someone identified as JN was still closed. So the 5 men waited, went to the liquor store, bought liquor and plastic red Solo cups, then came back. While they were waiting, the complaint says Williams Sr. called JN multiple times. Surveillance later showed Williams Sr. entering the office building around 3:28 p.m. and talking on his phone around 3:39 p.m. A studio employee arrived to help open up and start production. When the employees got there, Williams Jr. and Williams Sr. were still standing at the back of the building, apparently arguing over the phone. Then, at about 3:43 p.m., investigators say the whole second wave came in. Williams Jr., Williams Sr., Wright Johnson, Waters, Rogers, Gibson, Glover, and McDaniel entered on the east side of the building and walked through the lobby toward the studio. One of them, later identified as Gibson, is seen on the video leaving, then shortly returning with the bag slumped over his shoulder. That detail would matter later too. Inside, the victims were in the studio's control room watching a football game. CW stayed positioned in the studio lobby area while TD remained out in the vehicle they arrived in. According to the complaint, the victims overheard Williams Jr. talking on the phone, possibly with a probation or parole officer, saying his caseworker had given him permission to be out for rec time. But from what the victims could hear, he was told that that was not the case and that he needed to return immediately. The affidavit said he agreed. He was still wearing the ankle monitor, so to the victims, it looked like he was on some kind of house arrest or the federal restrictions. Gucci Mane told Pooh Shiesty that they could just reschedule a studio session, but instead of just leaving it there, Pooh Shiesty asked to speak with Gucci Mane privately in a recording room, and that's where, according to the complaint, that the business meeting stopped being about business. The affidavit says RD entered the recording room with Williams Jr., Williams Sr., and Wright. MM and BP stayed in the control room with the other men. At one point, BP even offered to share the liquor they had bought, and at least two of the men accepted and started making drinks in the red Solo cup. But inside the recording room, the conversation changed. According to the complaint, Williams Jr. pulled out a purported contract termination paperwork from a bag and told RD to sign. When RD refused, William Jr. got agitated and an argument started. MM and BP could see into the room and first believed that it was just a heated seeing it got worse, text CW in the lobby. The complaint said that Williams Jr. then instructed Wright to go get his bag. Wright left the room, came back with the bag. He pulled what the affidavit described as a black AK-style pistol from it, pointed it at his CEO, at Gucci Mane, and again demanded that he sign the release paperwork at gunpoint. According to the complaint, RD complied. Wright then allegedly took out a cell phone and recorded RD signing the paperwork while being forced to say he was released from the contract. After the signature was on paper, the complaint says Williams Jr. took RD's red ring, watch, earrings, and cash, then handed the paperwork to his father and asked if it looked good. According to the affidavit, Williams Sr. said it needed to be dated, so Williams Jr. forced RD to add the date next to his signature. And while all that was happening in the recording room, the control room turned into something worse. The affidavit said that RD, Williams Jr., and Williams Sr. and Wright came back out, and the remaining men, Waters, Rogers, Johnson, Glover, McDaniel, and Gibson, produced handguns or AR, AK-style pistols and started robbing BP and MM. BP was pushed down onto the couch. One man known to BP as CMO Damn Fool, later identified as Rogers, searched his pockets and took his wallet. Another man BP known as Glizzy 375, later identified as McDaniel, allegedly ripped a chain and a necklace bearing the moniker 1017 from BP's neck. During the robbery, the complaint says McDaniel repeatedly threatened to shoot BP if he moved, even though Pooh Shiesty allegedly instructed him not to. BP also identified an individual he knew as Baby Slime 375X, later identified as Corday Johnson, as one of the people holding him and others at gunpoint. Both BP and MM identified another individual they knew as KD, later identified as Kadarius Waters, as being involved in the kidnapping and robbery as well. Armed and controlling the room, MM part of the story gets uglier. The complaint said he was choked from behind to the point of nearly losing consciousness, leaving scratches on his neck and wrist that were photographed and included in the paperwork. His property was allegedly taken at gunpoint too. A Rolex watch, Louis Vuitton bag containing multiple high-dollar watches, Apple AirPod headphones, and his wallet. The affidavit says each of those items had air tags, and investigators label used those digital locators as part of the case. Out in the lobby, security could hear enough to know something had gone wrong. The complaint says Wright walked over to the studio door, shut it, and used his body to block it, preventing the victims from getting out and preventing CW and TD from getting in. The two security men tried to force the door open, and though they were both armed, the affidavit said they realized they were outnumbered by the armed men inside. The control room, according to witness statements, had turned into a death scene in their heads. RD, aka Gucci Mane, was pushed onto a couch. The victim believed they might be about to be executed. Then the group began to break out of the room. According to the complaint, Williams Jr., aka Pooh Shiesty, placed the barrel of a gun to the back of BP's head and ordered him and Gucci Mane to leave the control room and the studio through the west entrance of the building. Gucci Mane then instructed his security to escort them back to the vehicle. As they moved out, MM turned to Pooh Shiesty and then asked if they were really going to take his watches. The affidavit said the suspect then exited through the east side of the office building at about 4:48 p.m. From there, the escape pattern became part of the federal case. Exterior surveillance from the neighborhood buildings captured a white Buick Enclave, a black Dodge Charger Hellcat, and a black Dodge Ram with a distinct roll bar and traveling northbound shortly after the kidnapping and robbery. License plate readers showed the Charger in close proximity to the Ram. The complaint says the convoy moved from the offense location toward the Star in Frisco, arriving around 5:07 p.m. Then the phones and monitoring data showed more movement back toward the Comfort Inn at 11069 Composite Drive, Dallas, where the suspects allegedly remained overnight. Investigators say Gibson paid for 4 rooms, while other records show Wright, Johnson, and Waters traveled back later with
Just like the dirt. Everything.
According to the affidavit, it was later reported stolen by a man identified as T.A. shortly after Wright left to Dallas, the area. But the real killer for the case, according to the paperwork, wasn't just the surveillance and the movement. It was what happened after. The complaint says investigators got AFIX fingerprints hits from the crime scene, including latent prints from 2 red Solo cups, one matching Gibson's left-right finger, another matching Rogers' right thumb. Then came the social media work. The victims and investigators identified all of the members on the Instagram. According to the affidavit,
Everybody.
Jr., both by his legal name and as Pooh Shiesty. Investigators say the clothing, Shiesty mask, black hoodies, pants, shoes, and social media photos matched what he was seen on surveillance. One victim said Waters was Pooh Shiesty's right-hand man. The number 375 appeared repeatedly across multiple accounts. I detailed the complaint, even notes it connected to Pooh Shiesty and Big 30 song, Message 375. The complaint says the social media trial didn't just stop at identity, it turned into evidence of a possession. On January 11, 2026, investigators say Glover posted a story from Dallas showing a large amount of cash, a Rolex visually similar to the one that was stolen from MM, and a Dallas location tag. That same day, according to the affidavit, a video showed individuals visuals similar to Rogers and Gibson flashing large amounts of money and a watch. On January 17, Glover allegedly posted another story showing a Rolex that appeared identical to the one stolen. On January 19th, investigators say Glover posted a video wearing a 1017 pendant that appears identical to the chain stolen from Rogers' account allegedly showed him with the Rolex GM Master 2 Batman with the oyster steel band matching the watch stolen from MM. Other posts show shoes similar to the ones worn during the offense. The affidavit says those posts, along with the AirTag data, travel records, hotel footage, surveillance stills, and witness identification, all built to find a map of who was there and what part each person allegedly paid. By the time the FBI complaint reaches its ending, it isn't talking about one man anymore. It's talking about an operation. The affidavit's final summary breaks down each target suspect's alleged role. Glover as the one of the gunmen who robbed MM and later flashed stolen property online. Justin as one of the men holding victims at gunpoint. McDaniels as the one who took jewelry from BP and threatened to shoot him. Rodgers as the one who searched BP's pockets and stole the wallets and later appeared online with the stolen Rolex. Waters as the armed participant and close right-hand figure of Pooh Shiesty, and whose own electronic monitoring, phone records, and witness statements placed him side the offense. And Wright Jr., who got the bag containing the 4th contract release and traveled with the other suspects in the vehicle. The conclusion of the complaint says that there was probable cause to believe that on January 10, 2026, in the Dallas division of the Northern District of Texas, DeMarcus Glover, Demarion Gibson, Corday Johnson, Darian McDaniel, Terrence Rogers, Kadarius Waters, Latrell Williams Jr., Latrell Williams Sr., and Rodney White Jr. conspired to and committed kidnapping in a violation of federal law. And that's what makes this chapter the centerpiece, because according to the complaint, this wasn't some club fight, some random heat of the moment crash out, or some street rumors infatuated online. That was a meeting arranged over a contract, a studio chosen in another state, a printed document allegedly brought in to force a signature. Multiple men moving together in tracked vehicles. Victims separated inside a control room and a recording room. Jewelry and money taken at gunpoint. A studio door blocked shut. Security outnumbered. Suspects fleeing together. Some of them heading back to Memphis by bus. And then social media posts that, according to investigators, helped tie the stolen property right back to the people who taken it. Chapters were about the rise, the fame, and the money, the violence, the Fed case, the release, and the comeback attempt. This chapter is where the whole thing folds back onto itself. After everything that went down in that Dallas studio, the headlines, the allegations, the investigations, it all finally caught up. No cameras, no chains, no stage, just a federal courtroom in Dallas, Texas. And in that room, everything changed. The judge looked at what was presented and ruled that there was probable cause, enough to say this wasn't just rumors or internet talk. And at that moment, the judge wasn't convinced enough to let him walk. So now he sits, waiting, while his future hangs in the balance. But outside that courtroom, something else was happening. Gucci Man wasn't just doing interviews, wasn't arguing online. He did what he always does. He went to the booth and he dropped Crash Dummy. That record wasn't just a song, it was a message. Talking about walking into what he thought was a business meeting. He didn't have to say any names for people to understand who he was talking about. He called them Crash Dummies, basically saying they threw everything away for one moment, one decision, one move to change everything. And when he said, after all that, boy, you still signed to me? That line alone summed up the entire situation from his perspective. But the internet split down the middle. One side saying Gucci a snitch, saying he went to the police, saying he broke street code rules. The other side saying, hold on, man, he got robbed. Millions in jewelry gone. He a grown man, a businessman. What was he supposed to do? And that's where everything got complicated. Because this ain't just street politics. It's business. It's contracts, money.
That's his whole livelihood. But that's his business. So I mean, Gucci made all that money by itself. Did nobody? I mean, a couple of us supported, but we didn't make.
One side moving off street code and the other moving off real life consequences. And when those collide, it never ends clean. Looking at the bigger picture, this situation flipped everything. You had an artist signed to a major label now sitting in federal custody. Again, you had a relationship built on music, now turned into accusations. And you had one moment inside a studio that changed both sides forever. For Shiesty, everything paused. Career on hold, freedom gone for now. Name tied to a case is not going away anytime soon. And for Gucci, life keep moving. Music, business, the label, but that trust, that street code trust, that's done for.
Yep.
That's really what this all comes down to.
Yep.
Not just what happened in that room, but what it caused. Because in the end, it wasn't just about jewelry. It wasn't about a contract. It was about decisions, timing, and one moment that turned into something way bigger than anybody expected. Now, one side telling their story in court, and the other telling their story in music. Two different versions, one truth, somewhere in the middle. And until everything fully plays out in court, that question still is unanswered. What really happened in that room? Because once that line is crossed, there was no going back. When it might fade. This time, it didn't end with applause. It ended with consequences. This was episode 10.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna end with this though, man. With the crash out he did, man, it's too far to come back. You left for 5 years, you still had a buzz. Why? Because your boy Lil Durk is fighting a hot Rico case that came right after you. With his name still buzzing, the big song that y'all did together, that's what kept you buzzing. But after 5 years, you going back, you coming back out for what, 90 days, less than 90 days, and then gonna be doing 10, 20, 30 plus years because you ain't finna get hit with no five again. They ain't finna hit you with no sweet stuff. So, Pooh Shiesty, you gonna have a bigger face, a bigger belly, with a whole lot more gray hairs. And the best thing you could do is just buy top of the line food because you can't do nothing else in there but buy a phone. So that's the reality of things. Some people say it's right, some people say it's wrong, but that 10 million could have been worked out in a whole lot of different ways other than going to jail with your daddy and your childhood friend. But we finna be up out of here, man. This is another Say Less Moments reaction. Like